We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
I mean, what's Pro Football Focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stones.
Am I going to get sued?
You go legal on this?
I like football, like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live here on a Monday morning, 7 a.m., head-to-head with Good Morning Football. And we're here to review all of the Week 7 action. How you doing, man?
Good. Are you going to leave for, what's the show that Nate Burleson went to? Just Good Morning America? Is that it? Where'd he go?
CBS this morning?
This morning? Okay.
Something like that.
Some morning.
One of the big morning shows on the national networks?
Uh-huh.
I might.
You going to bounce?
I could.
You can't go on one of those. You're too big. You can't be put,
What, they have chairs? Step stools for the
co-hosts? You need your own
co-hosts?
special chair that doesn't put your knees up by your ears and stuff. No, you're just too awkward.
You would miss me.
Who knows?
You would never admit that. Who knows? I got a who knows out of him. That's pretty good. All right, we're going to get into all the action. But first, quick announcement. This Friday, what's going down?
Yeah, the baseball thing, the charity event that we've been, we got there ages ago, and then we've been kind of radio silent for a while. It's because we've been waiting patiently for the venue to become available.
Yeah.
It is now available. We are going to be doing this thing at Great American Ballpark, the Cincinnati Red Stadium. Now, they're not going to let us use, the field where we could make a mess, but
They're going to give us access to certain parts of Great American Ballpark.
Absolutely.
AKA the bullpen.
So huge thank you to the Reds and to Dave Solfaro, who's set all this up and got it rolling. We will find out if I can pitch 60 miles an hour with our own radar gun on Friday, upcoming Friday.
All right, so that's happening. We'll record it this Friday. We'll figure out how we
it'll be like
unveil.
last time. We'll have a little video of the whole thing, and we'll show documented proof. But it'll happen.
It's my former home stadium here. You could see, right over your shoulder, the Palazzolo jersey. That's a Palazzolo Reds jersey.
Yeah.
Because I played there.
And then we're on to, so after that, we'll be on to the next charity drive, finally. So we will need suggestions for the charity to donate to, and also what we can do, Because
Yes.
we're out of, not out of ideas, but this has been
just
the
need a
latest
next
idea. We've been on this one for a while. We haven't been thinking about this for ages.
We're on to the next idea.
Yeah, on to the next thing.
All right, so be excited. Be excited about that.
Excited.
All right, Week 7. Let's get to it. Don't forget Thursday night. We don't neglect Thursday night football. We just touch it. We don't spend the time to review it.
The NFL does.
Yeah, the NFL does. Arizona Cardinals beat the New Orleans Saints 42-34.
Yeah, we got some points this time.
Yeah, a lot of points. Couple
Touchdowns.
pick sixes and the whole thing. So, yeah, that was exciting. We're going to get into Sunday's games right now.
That's it? That's your breakdown?
Did you have anything else on that? Arizona moves to 3-4. In the NFC West now, 3 teams are 3-4, and, of course, the Seattle Seahawks sitting there in first.
For the Geno Smith-led Seahawks atop the division, what we thought was one of the best divisions in football.
That's right.
Yeah, pretty impressive. That's really all you got in this game, huh? You just it happened.
We just haven't been reviewing Thursday Night Football. I don't want to stray from that.
Well, we had the Red Rifle who was playing really well, except for all the times he threw the ball to the defense.
Neither pick six was his fault.
Well,
the one in the end zone was his.
Yeah.
He had one in the end zone, 2 pick sixes, one that was off the Marcos Callaway's hands, another one he gets hit, popped while throwing, goes right to Isaiah Simmons, 2 pick sixes. Arizona's offense, though, I know you had 14 points there because of the pick sixes, but they looked much better with DeAndre Hopkins back. They fed him 8 or 9 catches for him.
14 targets.
Yeah.
Nobody else had more than 5.
That made sense.
Went back to last year's offense.
Yeah, I mean, just feed DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one, and you're going to at least move the ball a little bit better. Kyler Murray, I was reading his yards per attempt figure over the last few shows, and it was all between 5 and 6 every single. He was up to 7 in this game. So you could see the difference in this Arizona offense with Nuke Hopkins back.
See, you have things to say. You just need to be prompted.
10 catches for 103.
Kevin White shows up with a big play.
He did. 64-yarder.
Former first-rounder, the guy that people were debating. Is it Amari Cooper? Is it Kevin White? Well, this week, at least on Thursday, it was Kevin White.
Yeah.
And Raheed Shaheed with another monster play.
This time, 53-yarder on a post.
Yeah, this time the bomb deep down the field after his run play last week. So he actually looks like quite an exciting player. All of a sudden, like if that receiving core gets healthy, if you have Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara out of the backfield, Raheed Shaheed, Marquez Callaway, like they've got some real playmakers.
I agree. I mean, the Saints remain confusing because Chris Olave went over 100 yards again. He is absolutely fantastic as far as getting open and the big playability that he's added. The Saints remain confusing because the defense has been so inconsistent this year, and the offense has all the pieces. But even the offense has just gone in spurts. This was a good spurt for the offense. You can't take away those pick sixes; they were a thing. But the offense was moving the ball, so. Saints are 2-5 and very confusing.
Sure.
How's that?
Good.
All right, let's go to yesterday's action, starting with, let's go Baltimore Ravens 23, Cleveland Browns 20. Ravens moved to 4-3, and I think most importantly, they held a lead.
They did, just about. They tried to throw it away again.
For the 7th straight week, the Ravens had at least a 10-point lead.
They showed a graphic at one point. It was like all the number of games in which a team had held a 10-plus point lead so far this season, right? And then it was the record of those teams at this point in the season. So the Eagles, I think, were number one. They'd done it every week or whatever, and they were obviously 6-0. And then it was a bunch of other teams. Everyone has a good record, basically, except Baltimore, who somehow conspired to be like 500 with all these 10-point leads. But they ended up getting this one. Got it over the line, just about.
I mean, you're starting to think it could happen again. It's 20-13.
It got close.
It was 20-10. The Browns kicked a field goal. There was a point where Jacoby Brissett hit, I think it was Amari Cooper, that had the deep ball where he pushed off.
Yep.
It was a clear push off.
By the way, though,
but it started to feel like
that's such an egregious penalty. Offensive pass interference on plays like that is so harsh because the down's dead and you're back 10 yards.
Yeah, no.
It's like it's a killer for something that's like usually most of the.
Well, no, you replay the down, you just lose 10.
Yeah, but the 10 is massive, particularly in those situations where you're trying to move down the field to get any kind of score on the board.
Yeah, don't cheat.
I mean, a minor push off. Like I have no.
Not to complain about the officiating again, but and I'm not saying it was necessarily a bad call. It is just really tough. Look, we were very candid about our grading last week and everything. A lot of times when we go through our grading, it's comparing like plays, right? And you kind of go back, and if there are questionable plays, you look at it and say, hey, the last time we saw something like this, we gave it X, right? It's really tough to watch football plays and think, I just watched this one game where the receiver, strong arm somebody at the catch point and they counted.
Yeah.
And then another one where it's like, the bent elbow nudge or whatever, and it gets called. Whatever it is, right?
That line
it
is
is
so
very
thin.
difficult seeing the A/B analysis of calls.
That's why I think it's so harsh as a penalty, because that line is so thin that essentially it's an arbitrary cutoff, whether you're like, yep, great play, 40 yards down the field, or nope, and we're going to penalize you 10 yards for even trying that. Yeah. Asshole. Like, that's the line we're talking about. I know you can make the same argument that for the defensive side of the ball, coverage is the same line. It's like the fine line between, yep, great coverage, well done, and no, actually, we're going to move the ball 50 yards downfield because you were too grabby. But like, at least one way, you're actively stopping the other guy catching the ball. The other way, you're just kind of creating a little bit of separation and giving yourself an opportunity to make the play. You still have to make the play after you, quote-unquote, cheated.
The Ravens run-heavy attack here. 44 total carries, including everything from Lamar.
The Gus bus, back from his ACL.
Gus was back. Finds the end zone twice. The Kenyon Drake, after being the guy, what did he average, 10 yards per carry? The week before, he goes 11 carries for 5 yards. But Gus Edwards looking good in his return. Lamar had his usual on the ground. But they dropped back under 20 times. 16 attempts and 3 sacks for Lamar Jackson. Run-heavy attack here. They did get Devin Duvernay involved with a 31-yarder, but not as much as maybe Greg Roman wanted to with the exclamation point. But look, the Ravens moved to 4-3. They took care of business as far as having the lead goes. And the Browns, once promising season, starting to get off the rails here, down to 2-5.
Yeah, though this one wasn't like last week. I think we saw what happens when Jacoby Brissett has one of those bad games. 5 turnover-worthy plays. He looked not good at all. My logic for taking the Browns at least to cover, which they did, this week is he can't possibly do that again. You're not going to get a 5 turnover-worthy play game from Brissett again, and he didn't. You got a much more balanced version of Jacoby Brissett. Now, it still wasn't great, but there were a couple of dimes in there, a couple of really nice plays. His fumble in the pocket was kind of unlucky. Like, he steps up to avoid the first pressure by Justin Houston, and then Calais Campbell, by virtue of being 9 foot tall, ends up getting one arm in there and knocking the ball loose just as he goes through.
There's benefits to being 9 foot tall.
There really is, particularly when you're a defensive lineman trying to get a sack. So that was, it's not like he's completely blameless there, but kind of unlucky. Those
were a couple strip sacks there where he just doesn't feel the pressure as well as he could. But you have
one, though, he felt it. He got up, he was moving away from the initial pressure from Houston and just didn't budget for the idea that Calais Campbell is that freaking big and long and has that kind of reach with his arm to be able to get in there and knock the ball out. But then, had a nice dime to Donovan Peoples-Jones late down the sideline, had another one to Amari Cooper on that play where he pushed off. Like, he was executing the comeback until it didn't happen.
He was executing the comeback until it didn't happen. Once again, Ravens did a nice job. A few guys rushing the passer. Odafe Owe. You mentioned Calais Campbell with the strip sack. Kyle Hamilton, who they've used in more of a, sub type of role. Linebacker slot hybrid. Hamilton had a really nice pass rush and a sack, beating right guard Yelde Frohold. The Browns struggled in a couple spots along the offensive line, and it came down to it, just a couple key plays here and there. Nick Chubb still has another spectacular game, but it's just not enough when you're riding a running back.
They gave themselves a shot. Like, JOK had a really good forced fumble late to get the ball back with 3 minutes left, down 3. They had a shot at it and just didn't get it done. The Browns, I think, did a really smart job of sort of leaning on David Njoku in the pass game. And, Baltimore has this weird defense where they play the sort of sub packages and you're never quite sure who is going to line up covering guys like tight ends and running backs. And they were able to get Njoku isolated with Patrick Queen a bunch of times in coverage. And that's just a massive mismatch for the Browns. So even though, like, Queen had one of those games where it was a drive where he had back-to-back really nice tackles for loss, like shot through the line, made a play, but his grade isn't going to be that great, in part because they were able to pick on him with Njoku in coverage quite a lot.
All right, so the Ravens, they're going to turn around quickly, have Thursday Night Football against the Bucs this week. And as I mentioned, Browns fall. Yeah, I know. Browns fall to 2-5. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning $250,000 plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5-player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up now with the promo code PFFNFL at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. You don't want to miss out on this from No House Advantage. Other AFC North team here, Cincinnati Bengals, looking like last year's Bengals here, 35-17 over the Atlanta Falcons. This was one of those games, remember late in the season last year when Joe Burrow, he went over 500 yards. Was it twice last year? Or it was like 450 in one game and 500 in the other, whatever it was. I mean, in this one, Burrow goes 34 for 42 for 481 and 3 touchdowns. It looks like a college stat line here. But this was the Bengals passing attack. They put it in Burrow's hands early. And the Chase familiarity factor, Sam. We're going to make this a thing. How familiar are you with Jamar Chase. The Falcons, not familiar enough.
Problem with that is you only get one kind of go-round at it, you know? It's not a thing that lasts throughout your entire career, generally.
I guess it didn't work against the Rams in the Super Bowl, but...
Well, I mean, you know, they had different problems in that game. But, yeah, so we talked about this before the game. They were facing a team that hasn't seen Jamar Chase yet, but a player who has. A.J. Terrell faced him in the national title game, and that was a weird game where, depending on how you view those plays, changes your opinion on A.J. Terrell as a prospect. So a lot of people looked at that game and went, wow, A.J. Terrell's the guy getting wrecked by Jamar Chase every play. You're like, okay, sure. The other way of looking at it is A.J. Terrell actually did a really good job of being basically challenging at the catch point pretty much every play that went Jamar Chase's way in that national title game. And that is quite impressive when you see what other cornerbacks, or what happened to other cornerbacks against him. So Trayvon Diggs, for example, most of the plays was not in a position to challenge at the catch point. Very not in a position to challenge at the catch point when he faced Jamar Chase in college. So anyway, you're like, A.J. Terrell has seen him. He's not going to be surprised. He knows what to expect. And then A.J. Terrell seems to pop a hamstring early in the game, just running a pattern with Jamar Chase, and he's gone. All of a sudden, there's nobody left in that secondary who has seen Jamar Chase before, and that's when Jamar Chase starts to go nuts. And, all right, the rest of the secondary was already getting wrecked. You know, Tyler Boyd did them on a coverage bust early in the game where Richie James just fell over in the middle of his back pedal. That's never good.
It was not good.
There was in literally 5 seconds
Richie
apart.
Grant. Yeah.
5 seconds apart. Tyler Boyd deep touchdown on a coverage bust, and Mike Evans drops his deep shot on a coverage bust, but same thing. Guy fell over.
Yeah.
Literally, those plays happened almost at the exact same time, and one of them was complete, the other one wasn't, potentially changing the course of those games.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely did. Look, the Bengals, I thought that the Falcons might, play the cover two and, keep it close or whatever. It didn't matter. Bengals had answers on short stuff, deep stuff. They are getting Tyler Boyd involved a whole lot more these last couple of weeks. We mentioned how he was a big part of their offense last week, working out of the slot. He leads the team with 155 yards, had that 60-yard touchdown, as you mentioned. And then the Jamar Chase factor was just they hit him on a little stop route up the sideline. Yeah, that happens all the time. But the thing that made Jamar Chase so special and even surprising to us was when he turned a normal 15 to 20-yard gain into a 41-yard touchdown and runs past the defense. And that's that familiarity factor when he's just so much faster on Sunday, on the field. And this was Chase got his, Boyd got his, T. Higgins had his 93 yards on 5 catches. Like I said, Joe Burrow feeling it, didn't miss a whole lot of throws. And I'm not saying it's going to happen like this every week, but this was reminiscent of the second half run that the Bengals made last year where they went from run-first attack to, oh, by the way, Joe Burrow could play as well as any quarterback in the league in any given week, and this is what we saw.
But it's another example of it needs the pass protection to just hold up. It just needs to be – it doesn't even need to be good. It just needs to not be a complete and total disaster, and then you see that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase still functions. Now, again, I don't know how that dynamic changes once Jamar Chase has been through the league and he's run out of teams that haven't seen him before, and all he's facing now is teams that are prepared for how explosive and how good he is.
I mean, it's a fun theory and all that, Sam. It doesn't mean he's going to go from really good to just this average receiver.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that changes. Randy Moss had the same thing, right? Randy Moss went from being utterly surprising and devastating the first time anybody played him. He was literally unstoppable in that 1998 season. And then teams had a better understanding of what Randy Moss could do to them, and they changed the way they would defend him, and Randy Moss had to win in different ways. Randy Moss still went on to be one of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history, set, insane career numbers, and do it in a variety of different ways. But it changed, right? It wasn't the same. 1998 didn't happen every single season. You had to win in different ways from that point on. Jamar Chase is going to have the same thing, where you're only going to get one rookie year of complete surprise for everybody that faces him, and then he's going to have to do it in a slightly different manner and show that he can win more consistently and those kinds of things. So I'm not saying it's the difference between Jamar Chase being good and bad, but it is going to make it harder for him and Burrow to succeed going forward once they're not taking advantage of that every single week.
You're right. So this will probably end up being the best game as far as pass protection goes for the Bengals offensive line, I think.
Inept pass rush versus
the Falcons just don't have enough guys who rush the passer. Last week they did a nice job against the Niners, backup tackles. Not enough here in this one. The other odd stat line here is Marcus Mariota only drops back 21 total times. He ended up 8 for 13 for a $124. The type of stat line you would see in a game where Atlanta ran like crazy and was in control of the game, but they were down the entire time. You have a 75-yarder from Damiere Byrd in there, but that was pretty much it as far as this passing attack. It is odd that Atlanta they didn't run a ton of plays generally. They ran under 50 plays, but they weren't really throwing the ball a ton to get back into this one. So
so this was like an interesting game kind of flow situation. They were getting wrecked. Like the Bengals were scoring pretty much every drive early in the game. The Falcons were getting nothing done. They were 28-7 down, heading towards the half, and then they get that 75-yard touchdown to Damiere Byrd. They have a nice punt return off the Bengals don't go anywhere the next drive. They have a nice punt return. They get a field goal out of it. All of a sudden they put on 10 just before the half, and they get the ball back to start the third quarter. You're like, oh, this isn't quite dead and buried. And then they just got nothing done the second half. And Cincinnati didn't get a ton done themselves, but they didn't have to at that point because they sort of stemmed the potential comeback.
So that was it. Bengals moved to 4-3. They're tied with the Ravens now atop the AFC North. Now the Falcons, because the Bucs lost, Falcons are still tied for first at 3-4.
If Tampa Bay loses on Thursday, the winner of Atlanta, Carolina, goes top of that division.
Yeah, it's an absolute mess right now because the Bucs don't look like the Bucs. We'll get to them in just a few minutes. Next up, per my Twitter, Giants and Jaguars. Giants 23, Jaguars 17. Giants move to 6-1, Sam. Jaguars fall to 2-5. Even though they were favored at home, the Giants win and cover.
But first, smash that like button.
Oh, look at you. People that. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has anybody hit the like button yet?
Not enough people, but some people,
Not enough people.
Yeah, I'd like to
Hit
point
the
out,
thumbs up.
before we get into the tired trope of Sam dismissing the Giants, I did predict them to cover this game, and they did.
That's good. I predicted the opposite because I thought they would cover.
Your strategy of do the exact opposite of what you think should happen, it worked. You tied for your best week already with a game to go.
That's great.
You've already got 7 wins on the board.
That's great.
It's definitely an uptick over your 5 and then 2. You've got the same number of wins as you had the last 2 weeks combined with a game still to go.
Oh, man, what an embarrassment. So the Giants do it again. Another fourth quarter comeback.
Yeah.
The rushing attack is impressive. Saquon Barkley with a few big runs in there, especially in crunch time when they were running out, even though he did run out of bounds at one time. But Daniel Jones ends up with 107 yards on 11 carries. He had 7 rushing first downs. I want to get your thoughts on it, but I want to circle back to what Daniel Jones brought to the run game here for the Giants.
Yeah, Daniel Jones is one of the most confusingly successful rushing quarterbacks I can think of. It's not like he's unathletic, but neither is it that he's so athletic that you think it should be a problem. I'm not quite certain why he's as successful running the ball as he is. But it is like a real legitimate threat on this Giants offense because you can't switch off and not account for him in the run game. You have to actually prepare for the idea that he could take off at any moment and make a play on the ground, which changes the dynamic of everything else, right? If you're dedicating that kind of resource to a quarterback the way you have to do for rushing threat quarterbacks, it affects the passing game. It affects the secondary.
He does have decent speed. I mean, I'm trying to think of other – look, I didn't think Jalen Hurts is a good running quarterback.
Yeah.
But they also just tap into it a lot.
Right. But Jalen Hurts is so much bigger and more physical and stronger than Daniel Jones.
I know. Daniel Jones has good straight – he's a good long strider. He's fast. He's a good straight line speed guy. So he had 7 first downs yesterday on 11 carries. He had the QB sneak, which was the go-ahead touchdown. But other than that, he had 3 keepers. He had a naked boot where they put him out on the edge and a couple scrambles. So it was a mix. I think he certainly has enough speed to just keep it, right? That you have to respect him in the keeper game, which opens things up for Barkley and the rest of the running backs and everything, right? So I think there's that element, but I think you just have to look at the Giants and say they're tapping into it, right? 7 first downs, man. If you just steal 7 first downs, it's not like this every week, but you steal 5 to 7 first downs in a game, all of a sudden the offense that, look, it's not a great offense. It's not an explosive offense, but they do just enough. David Garrard always reminded me of this, right? David Garrard was like this efficient passer to the Jaguars. He was pretty good. He wasn't spectacular, but 2, 3, 4, 5 times a game, he would just move the chains. 3rd and 5, he'd pick up 6 on the ground. He did just enough to be a little bit better offensively, and I think Daniel Jones right now, especially these last few weeks, has elements of that for this Giants offense.
Yeah, and look, it's still important to kind of acknowledge who he's throwing to. I mean, we've made this point for Trevor Lawrence before, which is, yeah, look, things might be upticking, but he's still got a pretty rough supporting cast. Daniel Jones's primary target right now is Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie gimmick player coming out of college. He's becoming like the biggest part of this offense. He had 9 targets. Nobody else had more than 8. 6 catches, 2 more than anybody else. Like, he's getting it done without particularly good receivers. He's also getting done without a good offensive line. Like, again, it was Andrew Thomas and basically nobody else. Evan Neal went down with an injury that didn't look great over the course of that game. That's not going to help. So the Giants really iced this game in the fourth quarter. I mean, they just kept running the ball in the fourth quarter and dominating the Jags. They had over 100 yards rushing in the fourth quarter. They had 8 first downs in the fourth quarter just running the ball. Like, they were impressive late in the game. Like, okay, it's the Jags, so it's not the most impressive opposition in the world, but this is the reality of the Giants this year. They're winning these close games that they're in seemingly every week. They're good enough to keep themselves in most games, and then they're well enough coached that they're stealing these edges and getting over the line.
Jaguars had a chance to win it, or at least had an attempt to win it at the end. They're down 6. They're driving at about the 35-yard line. Trevor Lawrence hits Christian Kirk right at about the 1.5-yard line, hoping he was just kind of, catch short. It. Momentum would bring him in. It's not the worst decision in the world because the Giants are playing the end zone, but they just did a really good job.
It's like the Rams-Titans Super Bowl, 1 yard short. Just didn't get there.
1 yard short.
The other thing, I'm going to be running back guy today. The other kind of piece of information from this game was Travis Etienne, who looked, I think, more explosive than he did last week. Now, looked more explosive and still got run down by a defensive end, but okay, fine. We'll just put a pin in that. There's 2 ways of looking at that one. There's one, it's like, that's not great to be run down by a defensive end, And then the other way of looking at it is, wow, that's a really impressive play by Thibodeau to run whatever that was, 50 yards in a straight line, chase him down, basically outrun a cornerback to get it done. Like, the backside corner was coming across to Phil, and Thibodeau was the guy that got there first. So really cool play just to watch. But also, so Etienne became like the primary running back in this game. He got 80% of the rushing snaps, or of the snaps period, rather. He was the running back in the 2-minute situations, which you would expect as the sort of pass-catching back. But he was also the short yardage running back. He was running back number 1 in all scenarios, despite the fact that, James Robinson has been really good coming back off his injury. So we've kind of, the Etienne career got knocked sideways with his injury and with the Urban Meyer thing, but we might actually be seeing him we might be seeing him emerge now as this number 1 guy that he was supposed to be.
I'm rewatching this play. It's a little disingenuous to say it. If he did Thibodeau ran down the field and tackled him.
Yes. He ran him down.
Etienne, we're going with Etienne?
I'm going with Etienne.
Etienne had to cut back into him just a little bit. There was a guy along the sideline.
Yeah, he had to move slightly into his right. He still didn't put distance between himself and Thibodeau.
Yeah, but it's not like pure straight line speed.
No, I'm not saying
it was a great play by Thibodeau.
I'm not saying if you put them both running a 40, he would lose to Thibodeau. Like, we've seen their 40 times. We're aware of what that is. But
that was the implication.
Yeah. But still, he got run down. I mean, there are running backs that would make that cut and still be able to outrun the defensive end running behind them. That's all I'm saying.
I got you. Etienne did look pretty good. Jaguars remain just inconsistent. They're not completely confusing as much as they're just inconsistent. Etienne's touchdown run was really nice, weaving through traffic as well.
They're just not that good.
Yeah, but they probably should be. Maybe it's just Trevor Lawrence is inconsistent. He is again. He ends up with another, mid-tier type of grade. He also had one of the worst throws in the NFL of the last. You tried to give Daniel Jones the worst throw in the NFL earlier. Trevor Lawrence's negated turnover-worthy play. There was a penalty on it. It was in the comeback attempt, 42 seconds left, and his receiver wasn't there, but he didn't look. He just kind of threw it back across his body. Ended up getting negated. I don't know what the penalty was on the play, but he just threw it back across his body. Absolutely should have ended the game, and didn't count.
Yeah, so, didn't count then.
What?
Didn't count.
Didn't count.
Didn't happen.
But yeah, Lawrence goes back and forth between some good stuff and just inconsistent accuracy, inconsistent decision-making, feeling rushed. I see a lot of people trying to make descriptors of Kenny Pickett's play, and there's a lot of Taylor Heineke type of comparisons out there right now for Kenny Pickett, because it's like a guy that's just trusting his talent and ability, and he's sporadic but might not have it. I almost feel like Trevor Lawrence plays like that. He has the physical ability, but it's sporadic, and it's just this inconsistent level of play, and I don't know what the answer is. I do think, I'll repeat it now for the next 11 weeks here, the Jaguars need an X receiver. They need a true number one, and I know you can say this about a lot of teams, but the same way the Arizona offense was humming now, again, with DeAndre Hopkins on the outside, everybody could use a DeAndre Hopkins. I'm just saying Trevor Lawrence needs a guy that he can rely upon, move all the other guys down a peg. I don't care what Christian Kirk is making. He's a complementary option. He's a complementary option to the pass game. Lawrence needs a true number one.
Yeah, we're still just so light on games where Trevor Lawrence takes over and looks like the guy he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you see consistently that there are plays, it's on the play level rather than the game level at the moment. And it just needs to become bigger sample sizes of the good stuff. Like, there's plays where you see the physical talent, there's plays where you see the athletic talent, there's plays where you see the processing ability and the correct decision-making capacity, and then you stretch it all together and it just doesn't show up over the course of a game. I don't want to say anybody can do it on an individual play, but most quarterbacks can. That's why you get to the draft and everybody's talking up what these guys can do.
But we evaluate them on consistency, right? You get evaluated on 40 good dropbacks, 35 good dropbacks, not 10 or 15.
Yeah, but it's quite a low bar to clear to even get that to the point where you're doing it over the course of a game. Like, even Geno Smith had those couple of games earlier in his career with the Jets where you're like, oh yeah, I mean, he strings a few more games like that together and we're really getting somewhere. Lawrence hasn't even really done that. That's concerning at this point, even with, again, not a great supporting cast around him. But it's not like Geno Smith had a great supporting cast around him when he was with the Jets. Like, we are just, I'm not saying it's time to panic with Trevor Lawrence, but you would really be hoping to have seen more from him at this point.
Yeah. It was another fourth quarter. Last week, he did have a fourth quarter comeback attempt, and he did lead a touchdown drive, but the Colts came back and won the game against him. I've been critical of Lawrence in these situations. It was a difficult, the last drive was a difficult situation, needing a touchdown, but they had other opportunities in the fourth quarter, either to seal the deal or to take the lead, and they just not working out here for the Jags. Credit the Giants, man. They moved to 6-1, right behind the Eagles now, or still in the NFC East. Picture it, Sam, your kicker's lining up for an onside kick. You know where I'm going with this. The chances of regaining possession are slim. The stakes are high. The tension is higher. Your pulse, it's racing. He kicks, and you watch as the ball lands. Make every play feel this exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with their unbeatable offers. Who's the girl who does the DraftKings commercials? I wonder if she's going through this script this year. She hasn't been doing this stuff. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. There's the drama that you need. $5, turn it into $200. Check it out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. To make things even sweeter, you could throw down on stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using the code PFF. All right, the Packers and Commanders. Commanders win 23-21. Packers move to 3-4. The Commanders also move to 3-4 because there's a lot of 3-4 teams around the NFL right now. Packers once again pretty inept on offense. Aaron Rodgers, a couple big-time throws down the stretch. Great touchdown to Aaron Jones to get within 2. But Taylor Heineke and the Commanders made some plays in the fourth quarter. I know Heineke threw a pick 6 and he threw the ball to the defense 4 other times.
Yeah.
Or gave it to the defense 4 other times. But a couple big plays down the stretch. That comeback route to Terry McLaurin. I want to talk about that in a second. But your initial thoughts here, 23-21 Commanders.
So I don't really give Taylor Heineke a ton of credit for what he did. I thought he played pretty terribly, actually. And he set the stage out very early. I think it was his second attempt where he's an absolute Ryan Fitzpatrick-esque YOLO out of the back of the end zone in the vague general direction of his receiver. And it's like, look, there is merit, particularly when you're as physically limited as a Taylor Heineke or Ryan Fitzpatrick, arm strength-wise. Heineke's actually a pretty impressive athlete rushing. But when you don't have the Josh Allen cannon, right, you have to sort of make up for that somewhere else. And if you have elite receivers like Terry McLaurin, there's a lot to be said for, well, I can't do this much, so I'm going to trust that he can and sort of make up for some of it. So there's something to be said for just heaving it, putting it in the air, and letting that guy go make a play. But
I mean, the touchdown to McLaurin was a dime.
Yeah, but it's a narrow line between, like, give the guy a chance to make a play and being reckless as hell with the football. And at least in this game, I think Heineke was the wrong side of that line, even though actually it was those plays that ended up helping him out late in the game and winning. So the net of it ended up being just enough, but I think that was more down to Green Bay just being bad than it was Heineke finding the right balance there.
I thought, listen, Heineke, he had the pick 6. Devondre Campbell with an outstanding play for the pick 6.
Yeah.
That was one. A couple other passes were behind receivers. Heineke also, he got away with one that was negated by penalty where he was just scrambling around. Rashawn Gary strips him from behind. That would have been another defensive touchdown, but it was negated by penalty. So there was definitely some carelessness with the football by Taylor Heineke. But the 2 big plays were hitting McLaurin for a 37-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, hit him in stride, and then with the game on the line, hits the comeback route to McLaurin. And you might describe it as just throwing it up and it was a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I would describe it as trusting his receiver, throwing it early, and putting it to a great spot. But if you go back and watch the play, McLaurin's not even close to out of his break yet, and he has to work back.
Yeah, he's also not even in. That's why it's not a good play.
But that's like if Peyton Manning did it, you'd be like, oh, look at the practice reps he puts in with Marvin Harrison.
This was a timing thing.
It was a timing thing. No. It was timing and location, and McLaurin works back to the spot to catch it to seal the deal for the Commanders. Look, it might have only been 2 good plays that Heineke made the entire game, but they were 2 good plays, and they were in crunch time, and that was a big part of the reason the Commanders won.
He threw a ball towards Jair Alexander, who Jair Alexander's not going to end up with a good grade in this game because he got beaten by McLaurin a few times, but he was actually making some real plays and has been for the last couple of weeks. Like, he made a couple of good plays in coverage. He also made a really nice hit in the run game. I think it was a run in the flat for a big defensive stop against Brian Robinson, I think. Like, he's been playing really well. So he's back to being one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL. You're throwing a ball into his coverage at the sideline where he has position at this point. And it relied on McLaurin muscling his way back through the corner to end up getting there first and making that play.
It's a great spot.
Again, there's a fine line between trusting your guy to make a play and just being careless with the ball and hoping you end up getting lucky. I just think that's more lucky than good.
Anyway, that was what sealed the deal for Washington. Packers, they controlled the game as far as having the ball because the Packers offense just had no rhythm whatsoever. Aaron Jones only gets 8 carries. They finished with 12 carries for 38 yards, Green Bay. So Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon between the 2 of them didn't have a longer run than 8. And Packers have 5 drops offensively. There's just no rhythm.
Aaron Jones is their best wide receiver, and Aaron Jones is a running back.
Yeah.
That's not great.
I mean, you also have, like, in the comeback attempt before Rodgers, did he have a – oh, no, before they were trying to set up a Hail Mary attempt, and then they just dumped it off the last play. But I mean,
they came so close to the rugby, the magic.
They tried.
They got really close. So sometimes in rugby, you end up in a position where you're in a great position, right? You've manufactured the overlap. You've got a guy in space out wide. There's nobody there, but it's a prop. It's a big 300-pound front row who doesn't have the hands, doesn't have the speed, and it goes nowhere. That's what happened with the Packers. They actually manufactured the guy on the sideline in space. Only it turns out it was like an offensive lineman, and he just couldn't even catch the ball, let alone then run down the sideline with it. So close to the dream rugby play at the end. Green Bay also, so they got David Bakhtiari back a couple of weeks ago. He's been rotating back in, working his way back, and then apparently had knee soreness and got shut down before the game in the same knee that he had, he'd had the surgery on. That's not a good sign. So all of a sudden, they've got Zach Tom, the rookie, at left tackle. Elton Jenkins moved into left guard. Josh Nijman was at right tackle. Like, complete reshuffle of that Green Bay offensive line, which actually did fine in pass protection against a good defensive line from Washington, a line that can get pressure. But that's not helping the whole situation of what they're dealing with. And then they just couldn't get anything done because nobody's capable of winning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if you look at how the non-skill position players played for the Packers, it was pretty good. Like, they rushed the passer extremely well. Taylor Heineke was under a ton of pressure.
It
was a handful of plays here and there for the Packers defense that went sour. But they were rushing the passer well. They protected well. It's really Rodgers and his receivers. Every time they start moving the ball, there's a drop or there's a missed throw. Sammy Watkins was in here, was back. He had 2 catches. One of them was through a defender's hands on that last play to set up the rugby play. I mean, there's just nothing happening offensively for the Packers. They
changed it up on defense, and I don't know if this is a product of facing Taylor Heineke, but they ran a ton more man coverage in this game than they run before. They were like 50+% in either cover 1 or cover 3 this week. Over the course of the season, that number is 20%. So they more than doubled the rate that they run man coverage essentially in this game. Now, if I was facing Taylor Heineke, I'd definitely think about that as well. Just get physical with his receivers, try and take away anything he wants to do quickly, and force him to make those kind of YOLO passes. But I also think that's something that this defense should be doing more of anyway.
They have the corners to do it.
Right. So maybe this is, an indication of something that's to come, that this Green Bay defense is actually going to get somewhere closer to what we thought it would be at the start of the season if they get more aggressive and more diverse on the back end.
Every now and again, Terry McLaurin just reminds you how special he is. I thought, the acceleration to get to that touchdown and the comeback route that we're talking about, he was fantastic. And again, another one of those games where because Green Bay was so disjointed on offense, Washington just committed to the run game, and you've got Brian Robinson over 20 with 20 carries. Antonio Gibson had 10 of his own, and they're just, chugging along. And they did a good job pretty much controlling the ball and offsetting the fact that the Packers could not sustain drives on their side. So
that the play to Aaron Jones late in particular showed that Aaron Rodgers is still there. Like, as much as...
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's still capable. He still has big-time throws. He rolls out. And
you're going to hear today a lot of places we're writing eulogies for Tom Brady, for Aaron Rodgers. They're both done. The teams stink. We're writing these guys off. But we'll get to Brady in a second. But this showed that the back-to-back MVP Aaron Rodgers still exists. Like, if we can get this guy somebody to throw to who isn't his running back, and even if he is his running back, he can still make these plays. Like, this Green Bay team, I think, is a product of the fact that they have nobody to throw to. And we've said this heading into the year. The trade deadline, it's today, right? Trade deadline?
Is it?
I think so.
This week or next week?
I think it's today. Anyway, the point is it's coming up, right? Green Bay desperately needs to make a move for a legitimate receiver.
Next Tuesday, November 1st.
And I'm saying, like, Chase Claypool isn't getting it done, right? If you actually want to win a Super Bowl this year, if you have any designs whatsoever in coming home with a championship, and as much as you've struggled, the whole NFC generally has been struggling. It's the Eagles who look really good, and then a bunch of teams that have nice records but nobody actually believes in, and then you guys. So the Super Bowl is not gone for Green Bay or Tampa Bay if they can figure their crap out over the course of the season. That can't happen for Green Bay unless they find a number one receiver from somewhere. And maybe that's OBJ. Maybe that's throwing a giant trade offer to Carolina for, DJ Moore. Whatever that looks like, they have to do something because you can't go through the year with this group.
Oh man, good luck. Good luck with that. Packers 3-4, Commanders 3-4, but still different feeling about that team. You mentioned Brady and the Bucs, 21-3 for the second straight week. The Bucs seemingly upset by a massive underdog. Maybe the Bucs just aren't that good.
Yeah.
Panthers 21-3. It was scoreless for a while, but P.J. Walker making huge throws.
Yeah.
In this game. I mean, he was dropping dimes left and right.
One last point in the Green Bay thing, by the way. Our buddy Ben Fawkes tweeted that the Packers are currently 10.5-point underdogs against the Buffalo Bills heading into next week. This will be the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career that he's been a double-digit underdog.
I mean, even like a touchdown underdog. I don't know if I've seen any of that. And that's just watching the Packers over the last couple weeks.
Can you imagine being them now this week? It's like you struggled against a bunch of teams we don't think are that good. You just lost to Washington. Congratulations! Now you got to go play the Bills in Buffalo.
I mean, the Bucs have a similar situation here. They fall to 3-4, and they got the Ravens coming to town Thursday night.
Yeah, they're at least. The problem that Green Bay is dealing with is that Minnesota, even though they don't look that great, is winning. So
nobody looks great, right?
No, but they're getting put further and further behind the 8 ball at the top of that division. Tampa Bay, even if they lose on Thursday, still waiting for somebody else to win to go top of that division. Like, they are still well in this thing. But this was as depressing and miserable as it's going to get for Tom Brady and the Bucs. They just got Carolina covered the spread by 29 points. They were supposed to lose this game by double digits, and they ended up winning easily by the end of it.
A lot of similarities to Pittsburgh game last week, where it's close, and then a 60-yarder for Deontay Foreman on the ground. Again, P.J. Walker just throwing dimes left and right. The 29-yarder to Tommy Tremble to really seal the deal. But I mean, this started with Bucs. Tom Brady hits Mike Evans wide open on a post route. Should be a 75-yard touchdown, dropped.
65-yard, I think.
65, whatever it was.
Yeah, I don't. So this is one of those ones where I don't know how much that changes things. So Tampa Bay, I don't know how many drives they had after this stat came up, but at one point they had one touchdown in 23 drives consecutively. I don't know if they got any more drives after that, and maybe it's a bigger number now, but that could and should have been another touchdown. Like, Mike Evans essentially runs his route, post route. Dante Jackson gets basically shoved over by Mike Evans in the course of the route. Is lying on the floor at the time the ball arrives. Evans just absolutely drops it. Just the kind of play you don't see Mike Evans make, dropping that ball. That's a touchdown. That gives Tampa Bay a 7-0 lead in a game they're expected to dominate, and maybe they run away and hide and they end up winning this by 2 or 3 scores. Doesn't happen, and all of a sudden they just can't connect. There's something off, and Brady and Evans couldn't get it going. They made a few plays over the course of the game, but it just wasn't working for the Bucs again. And Carolina was making good plays on defense. They stuffed a 4th and 1 toss play on their 25. So Tampa Bay was getting into Carolina territory and being forced to try and convert these 4th downs. Couldn't get it done. As an aside, I hate toss plays on 4th and 1.
Well, let me tell you what. I mean, here's what's happened over the last couple of weeks. The Bucs on they can't convert anything on 3rd and 1.
Yeah.
They run their duo play all the time, which is
never
straight
been
up
easier.
the gut. But last week they resorted to the toss on 4th and 1 because remember I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, like, you should never short yardage shouldn't be overcomplicated if you have a quarterback that can run the QB sneak. Brady actually failed at the QB sneak last week too, so the sneak wasn't working. They don't run up the middle all that well.
But also,
last week the toss play actually worked, but this week stuffed on 3rd and 1, then stuffed on the toss play on 4th and 1.
It's never been easier to convert 3rd and 4th and 1. We're seeing what everybody else is doing with these rugby plays, forming the maul, driving it over the line.
You can't push Tom. He's too old.
Don't do Tom then, right?
Get someone else?
Get somebody else. Line up the fullback and have Lenny charge into him from behind and drive him over the line. Like, this is not tricky. The rest of the league is converting these without even thinking about it now, and Tampa Bay can't do it up the middle, and they're running these toss plays, which people are ready for now, and stuffing it.
The entire rhythm of the offense is off with because Brady's only attempted, I think, only one sneak all year anyway, and it failed. right? It used to be, okay, in short yardage, you're going to convert there. I mean, everything's going wrong for the Bucs, right? You mentioned the Evans drop touchdown. They convert a 3rd and short. It gets negated by an illegal formation. You get stuffed on 3rd and 4th and 1 trying to run the ball. When Mike Evans is open, Brady's overthrowing him. Like, everything
it's a disaster.
Is off.
And unlike
Bucs
Green
offense.
Bay, you can't just say, well, they're bad in this one particular area of personnel. Like, this is not a personnel problem for Tampa Bay, which isn't to say they have perfect personnel, but the sum of the parts doesn't add up to this. Like, that's their problem right now. This is a different issue to we just don't have the horses to get it done.
You could tell the Bucs trying to respond to last week when they had no explosive plays or few explosive plays against the Steelers, saying, okay, we're going to get Mike Evans involved early. He had 15 targets. He ended up with 9 catches for 96 yards. There were times where him and Brady found a rhythm, but things just kept stalling in the red zone. Chris Godwin, he had a negated catch as well, but 7 catches for 43 yards. I mean, Chris Godwin should be more of a big play threat too, and he's just this underneath receiver. Brady's not taking enough chances probably throwing the ball down the field. And I want to say that they missed Gronk. Who wouldn't? But you do have rookie Cade Otton making some plays there too. Russell Gage may be disappointing as a free agent pickup, but trying to figure out what's wrong with the Bucs, it just feels like everything. Run blocking, receivers, big plays. Brady's inconsistent. He'll go back and forth between throwing a dime up the seam, which he made a few nice ones, to just missing throws. Yeah. So everything is just inconsistent and off for the Bucs. And I don't know how it gets you're talking about the Packers, like they got to go make a trade, and that might spur Aaron Rodgers to be more productive. For the Bucs, all their pieces are there. They have to figure out how to make the pieces work. I don't know if Julio Jones ever brings anything to the table at any point this season, but the Bucs have to figure it out with what they have.
The only good news for Tampa Bay is what we just talked about. They're still right there in the division. Nobody is going to go and run away with this division. No, they're not going to be in a situation where they lose a couple of games and they're out of the picture and they've just got no shot of making the playoffs. This is a team that is going to be in the playoff picture right until the end of the year. And if they can just get it figured out over the next, however many weeks, they've got a shot. The difference between that and Green Bay is I don't see how Green Bay can figure it out without wide receivers. Tampa Bay, you look at what they have an offensive line that's fine. They have a quarterback that's good. They have wide receivers that are good. There's no reason this can't work. It just isn't right now. But they're going to have time. Now we need to talk about the magnificence that was PJ in this game.
Do it.
I'm on record as not being a PJ believer. I do not believe that P.J. Walker is a very good quarterback. That being said, P.J. Walker was insanely good in this game. And apparently he's the only quarterback in the NFL that knows how to deal with, too high coverage looks. Middle of the field closed? Not when P.J.'s there. Boom, dime, touchdown. He was hitting throws that nobody else has been hitting this year. Teams are running these split safety looks. They're taking away specific deep route concepts with the alignment of those players. He was just looking at that and going, I can still get it there. His touchdown to DJ Moore, by design, you draw that up on the whiteboard, that's a play that isn't there. They've taken it away. By coverage, that shouldn't be there. And he just went, no, I'm going to put it there anyway. I'm going to put it at the back of the end zone. DJ Moore will get there. The DB won't. Touchdown. He was just dropping these beautiful zone-splitting hole shots all day long. He ended up with 6 big-time throws or something in the game. Okay, look, you look at his numbers, it's 177 yards. It doesn't.
One of them's DJ Moore right along the sideline. He put it in a perfect spot. Moore just out of bounds.
But his numbers don't look great. Terrace Marshall screwed him out of one pretty decent gain, 30-something yards early in the game. He put it right on him, and Marshall didn't come up with it. But he was just making plays all the way through that game. That was really impressive. That's the best I've seen P.J. Walker play ever. In not just
he had shown little spurts here and there, but this was
not
really
just the NFL, but college, XFL, and NFL. That's P.J. Walker's best ever game. And by the way, we talked about how the joke of an offense they had last week, where nothing was beyond the line of scrimmage. This was a totally different offense. They were taking shots downfield. The route combinations were pushing downfield. They were attacking spaces in zone. I don't know what the hell happened over the last week in Carolina, but this was a seismic shift.
The PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home? Planning to start a family? Wondering how to make your money grow? Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. A couple more 1 o'clock games. We got Dak returning. Dallas Cowboys 24. Detroit Lions 6. Lions coming off the bye week. They've now scored 6 points in their last 2 games after tearing the league apart in the first few weeks. Jared Goff, how many times have we had these stat lines over the last couple weeks? Jared Goff has 5 incompletions, 21 of 26, but 5 sacks and 2 interceptions. So of those 5 incompletions, 2 are picked, and he has as many sacks as incompletions in this one. Dak, he threw a couple into coverage as well. No interceptions there, but the run game was solid, and Dallas defense, just tore it up in the second half, really.
The problem with Goff is he's actually reasonably good until the turnovers, and the turnovers are so bad. Like, it's not even, there's a gradation of turnovers between, okay, that was just slightly inaccurate, and this is what happens when you throw the ball, slightly behind a receiver where there's a DB trailing and these things happen. And then there are other throws where you're like, this was bad from the moment from the moment your brain conceived of this throw, it was a mistake. It was then executed badly. It was bad at the start. It tailed off in the middle, and the less said about the end, the better. It was a train wreck from start to finish. These are the interceptions or the turnovers that Jared Goff has. And it's like, you need so much good to offset those plays.
I mean, in this game, he fumbles twice. One, Micah Parsons just absolutely whoops.
Yeah,
Taylor
but
Decker.
Again, the interception was so bad. Why would you ever put that ball in the air?
It's just underthrown.
But by a mile against a guy who's a ball hawk. It's like the jump ball that Kyler threw to Marquise Brown against Tariq Woolen. It's just a bad decision. It's never a good plan. And if you're going to execute that, you have to be perfect to even have a shot at it not going badly.
I think the first strip sack was Sam Williams, and that was one. It's because he's pulling a Russell Wilson, like vacating the back of the pocket and rolling out. It's like, that's where you have to know that you're Jared Goff. Right. I shouldn't be doing this. So it looks like Sam Williams whoops Penei Sewell. It wasn't a bad play by Sam Williams, but it wasn't necessarily a bad block by Penei Sewell. It's just Jared Goff has depth, and Williams does a great job exploding around the edge and putting the ball on the ground. And then the other key part here, the Lions, it was 6-3 at the half, right? I mean, this was not a good offensive game.
This is a really good example. Paul Alexander made this point on Twitter last night, that there's a design to these to some of these strip sacks where if you run a stunt on one side of the defensive line, right, the end crashes in, the tackle loops around to the outside to keep contained, a little bit, but he's late. So you run this stunt, the defensive end crashing in essentially causes the quarterback to spin out and head in that direction. If on the other side of the defensive line, that defensive end deliberately rushes deep in the pocket.
Yeah.
So way deeper than the quarterback is going to be unless he's spinning back around and out. That guy ends up in position to chase him down and force a fumble from behind that he never knows is coming.
Interesting.
He was making the point that the Colts with Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis made a career out of this. One guy would run loop and run the arc around the back, and then he'd be waiting for the strip sack after the quarterback is trying to get the hell out of the pocket. If you draw up this play or look at this play in the All-22, it's exactly what happens. Defensive end crashes inside of Taylor Decker, Goff spins out and around, and then that's the guy waiting literally right as he does it to just snag him from behind.
That's interesting too. I haven't checked on these numbers, but we do track first movement in the pocket by quarterbacks. And Goff in college was always a chronic left drifter. He'd always drift to the same area. There is something to that, right? So if you're rushing from his front side and he's going to drift left or gain depth, you're not trying to beat the tackle necessarily. You're trying to get to a spot like you said where the quarterback isn't normally if he's throwing in rhythm. But look, Dallas is like that level of special right now with their defense and having these complementary rushers for Micah Parsons. Parsons will get his and make his plays, but we've talked a ton about their stunts and what they're doing up front and all the attention that Micah Parsons has to get. I mean, there's a lot here.
By the way, so this game, this game was pretty close.
6-3 at the half.
Yeah, and it got pretty close late. Like, so there was a play, I can't remember when it happened. Late in the game, the Lions make a play to T.J. Hawkinson, who's running to the end zone, and he ends up getting chased down and stopped at the 1-yard line by Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons chases him down, stops him at the 1. The Lions then fumble on the goal line the next play. So they were down 4 at that point. They could have taken the lead.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, so late in the game, they're down 4. Hawkinson almost scores a touchdown. Parsons chases him down, makes the difference between scoring and not. And the very next play, they fumble the ball away, and Dallas ends up taking over. Like, those are the plays, like the difference. Those hustle plays that we talk about from defenders sometimes. You look at them, and you're like, oh, what's the difference? He stopped them at the 1. They're about to score anyway. It doesn't always happen. And when it doesn't, you just made the difference between, like, that's the minimum, that's a 7-point swing in your favor. And it's the difference between leading and not leading the game that Micah Parsons made just by the hustle play of chasing down a tight end.
Yeah, a fourth quarter, fumble at the goal line. I don't know if it was a different play or not. I think it was it Brett Coleman maybe? Stealing some video and posting it. But you've got
video.
DeMarcus Lawrence ends up blowing up like 4 blocks on one play on the goal line. Beats the tight end, takes out the fullback, gets in the back's way. I mean, little plays like that. It's always fun for us to have these like definitive takes and all that stuff. But like you said, it's really a couple plays in this game that made the difference for Dallas.
Yeah, so this is how critical that was. Okay, so they weren't down 4. They were up. Dallas was up by 11 at this point. They just had the Zeke Elliott touchdown. But the Lions are getting that done. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong play. Let me find that play again.
Go find it. Zeke did find the end zone twice. You'll see good rushing grades for both Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard. And then I mentioned, I thought Dak looked fine physically as far as throwing the ball. There was just a couple times he threw it, brought the safety into it, dangerous throws into coverage. But other than that, I thought velocity-wise and everything, Dak looked pretty good. He was actually pretty aggressive throwing the ball down the field, average depth of target over 11 as well. So Dallas didn't exactly tear it up offensively, but I think you could see signs that it's going to be a more explosive passing offense. Also have that Noah Brown gets knocked over fumble play that hurt as well as far as Dallas. Really nice play. Dak to Noah Brown. He gets tipped up and puts the ball on the ground almost near the goal line.
All right, that's my problem. It wasn't Hawkinson. It was somebody else. But yes, chasing down Dallas is up by 4 with 12 and a half minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So if they score in that play, or if they score, or if they score in the next play, the Lions take the lead in the fourth quarter with the majority of their failings coming from turnovers, and it could be a completely different game. But the play by Micah Parsons to chase that guy down, like that changes the outcome, really.
So there we go. Dallas moves to 5-2. NFC remains loaded. Dallas is 5-2 and in third place in the NFC East. They should play in the NFC South, where 3 and 4 is good for first.
Maybe they can pitch for a change. Petition.
They're in the South. I mean, that was the East a couple of years ago. Things go in cycles. So again, Dallas wins. Detroit falls to 1-5 this season, coming off their bye here. Tennessee Titans 19, Colts 10. Colts fall to 3-3-1. Hate saying their record every single week. Titans move to 4-2. That's 4 straight for them, right? They started 0-2. Or am I making that up?
Could be.
Pretty sure that's 4 in a row for them. Just another classic Titans game. Who was the star this week for the Titans?
Who's the star?
Who's the star? There was every week. It's Andrew Adams this week.
Oh, okay.
Every week, a couple weeks ago it was Joe Schobert. Then it was the pass rusher that used to play for the Ravens. I just lost his name. Every week it's a new star for the Titans. Andrew Adams with a pick 6 in this game. Bud Dupree had some good pass rushes in this game too. He had pressure on both of Matt Ryan's interceptions, which again were bad. The Titans have this incredible knack for creating unblocked rushers, which we've said before. But even in 4-man rush situations, they have an incredible knack for creating pressure without necessarily relying on guys winning one-on-one. And again, when Matt Ryan has faced pressure this year, it has not gone well.
Yeah, I also think so that pick six, the first one to Matt Ryan, it was unblocked pressure from Bud Dupree. Ryan went with his hot read. Wide receiver wasn't looking for it. Didn't seem to be interested in it. Now maybe the Titans were there. He was running into what looked like pretty cluttered coverage, and maybe the wide receiver is sort of trying to navigate what the hell he's looking at before he figures out where exactly he's going to be and when the ball is going to arrive. But what occurred to me then is that there's value to simply forcing an offense to execute that.
Yeah.
Like making sure that you can force them to their hot read and checking it, seeing if the quarterback and the wide receiver are on the same page on that play. If they are, it's going to be successful. It's a problem. But particularly if you can do that and also combine it with having a vague understanding of where their hot route is going to be,
right,
and getting to cause problems. Even if you're not, you would see this all the time with those old zone blitz defenses, right, where you would drop coverage from one side after blitzing from the other, and you would essentially drop coverage right into the area that the hot read is supposed to be, and either they have to pull it down and you get a sack, or they put it in the air anyway and you've got a guy standing there ready to make the interception. This isn't quite that. It was more sort of understanding where they're going to go and try and clutter that area with more bodies than you would normally, but simply forcing an offense to be on the same page, quarterback to wide receiver, can cause plays like this, where all of a sudden they're not, and you just have a free interception and get to walk it back.
I think it's a great point, Sam, and the only thing I would add to it is, especially with quarterbacks in new systems, I think there's more to that as well. Because remember when Brady was a couple of years ago with the Bucs, for years you say, well, don't blitz Tom Brady. It's like, well, that's fine. He was in a New England system where he knew every outlet like the back of his hand, right? Yeah. Even Tom Brady he's in a new system where it's not just him.
Yeah.
Beating the blitz is about the receiver being on the same page. So I know we're 7 weeks into this thing and it's not new, but it's new enough. Like, we're talking about reps, right? Quarterback reps where you just know where your guys are going to be. And it's still somewhat early for Ryan in the Colts or Russell Wilson in the Broncos or whoever, whatever the new systems and quarterback combinations around the league. So yeah, I like that as a concept, especially against teams that haven't necessarily mastered that yet.
Yeah, the Titans are really good at scheming up that pressure, and they've been able to get a lot of pressure from a group of guys that aren't great pass rushers, with the exception of Jeffrey Simmons. Bud Dupree had 7 pressures in this game. Two of them were unblocked. One of them was a cleanup play, but there were some wins in there as well. They got multiple pressures out of David Long, out of DeMarcus Walker, out of Rashad Weaver, Jeffrey Simmons. A stable of guys were able to get pressure consistently. Now, a lot of this is, look who they're playing. The Colts, their offensive line is an absolute disaster. They did what I told them to do last week. They started Dennis Daly at left tackle. Maybe it was better than Bernard Ryman, but if it was marginal. Dennis Daly didn't play great. Aaron Brewer didn't have a good game. Ben Jones didn't have a good game.
Dennis Kelly?
Sorry, Dennis Kelly. Did I say Dennis?
Yeah, Bud bull rushed him into Matt Ryan for the other interception as well.
Yeah, sorry, I'm reading Titans offensive lineman as well. Ryan Kelly didn't have a good game. Dennis Kelly didn't have a good game. Matt Pryor didn't have a good game. The offensive line for the Colts was basically Quentin Nelson actually having a good game, which hasn't necessarily been the case for this year. Braden Smith had a decent game at right tackle, but their offensive line is still a disaster.
Yeah, so they
and Matt Ryan, by the way, is not capable of making the plays that he used to be able to make when the offensive line was in trouble. Like that first interception, Ryan and the receiver aren't on the same page. It's a breakdown. It's not necessarily Ryan's fault, even if
But there's pass protection issues. Everything was bad.
But the second one, it's like, all right, the pass protection's breaking down. Ryan's sort of trying to make a play out of it, and he just sort of fires the ball into a tight window in coverage. And it's like, you can't make that play anymore, if you ever could.
Yeah. Jonathan Taylor made his return for the Colts offense, 10 carries for 58 yards. I'm usually not an advocate here of run the ball more.
Yeah.
But I do think given –
But run the ball more?
Yeah, I mean, Matt Ryan dropped back 60 times last week. And I know it worked. They scored a lot of points against the Jags and maybe found some life. But I think the reason why teams don't want to drop the back 50 times a week or a game is because of pass protection breakdowns, and you don't trust your offensive line. And Matt Ryan's not good under pressure. And It's just there's a lot of pressure on the quarterback. I think the Colts probably need to get back to, a Matt Ryan 35 attempt game rather than 44 or 60.
Yeah, I don't know how you fix an offensive line that's as bad as theirs is right now. I think they ranked dead last in PFF's offensive line rankings last week. And
everything.
This didn't do a ton to improve that.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry looking a lot more like Derrick Henry this week than he had in the past. What did you make of the Titans tried to get tricky with Malik Willis?
There's a Malik Willis fourth quarter. I think Tannehill technically gets the fumble. I didn't check the box score because he didn't get credit with it, but they had Malik Willis on the jet sweep.
Yeah.
And he fumbles it in the fourth quarter to give the Colts
7.
A glimmer of hope there.
I mean, that was a really situationally. That's a fumble turnover when they're up 7. Like that's a potential game changer.
So it's interesting because I'm all for the creativity aspect. The Seahawks had something with D. Eskridge, right, where they just put him in the backfield and he
just drops
a pitch. I mean, do you have to be so risk averse that you're like, hey, Malik Willis isn't used to taking a jet sweep handoff? And a D. Eskridge is a wide receiver, and we love the concept of a receiver in the backfield. However, he's just not used to the ball handling, right? You're not used to catching the ball or taking the handoff. Is that too risky for what the payout
So there's
could be?
Two differences to me. Number one is D. Eskridge could spend the entire week practicing that play and doing nothing else. For the amount they've been using him in the offense, like you could practice that all week and have no downside.
You're over there with the kickers practicing catching pitches.
Malik Willis, in theory, should be doing something else with his time, right?
True.
And I don't know if you're spending the entire week practicing him taking a jet sweep handoff. If you are, that's probably not great for his development. Number two, D. Eskridge is a wide receiver. He should be able to catch a pitch out of the back, that should be within his range of default skill sets. There's a difference between that and taking a jet sweep handoff.
There is.
And that's an actual technique that you need to practice at some point to get that right. So D. Eskridge, in theory, should be able to just go into the backfield, do that play with no practice / change of what he's doing, and it should just be there. Whereas the Malik Willis thing, that's something you actually need to practice to make sure that's not going to go wrong the way it did. And I don't know if you want to waste / dedicate that time to it. That, to me, is where, I'm all for the jet sweep creativity, et cetera. I'm just not sure Malik Willis is the guy you want doing it.
Yeah, that did not go well. Gave the Colts a little bit of hope, but not enough. 19-10, Titans win. Classic Titans win because you know how Sunday Night Football does the stars of the game or whatever. We should have a running tally of the Titans stars of the game, particularly on defense. Joe Schobert, Danico Autry.
Just randoms.
Danico Autry is who I was thinking of. Autry, Andrew Adams. Who's the star in any given week? This week it's Andrew Adams. All right, let's get to the 4 o'clock games here. New York Jets. They moved to 5-2, 16-9 win over the Denver Broncos. Russell Wilson, it's a real injury, Sam. He had the hamstring. He's out.
Real pain.
He's going to probably miss next week as well in London against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brett Rippon gets the start. Didn't go much better offensively for the Broncos. And, it wasn't much better for the Jets offensively either. Breece Hall, 62-yard touchdown, unfortunately goes down with a knee injury. He's out. That was it offensively as far as the Jets go. 16-9 here.
There were so many injuries yesterday.
Yeah.
Some of them seem like they're not going to be long-term things, but the Breece Hall one sounded pretty bad, which is massively unfortunate.
He was ruled out pretty quickly.
Yeah, there's a couple of players that happened, and it's usually always a bad sign. He was, again, playing really well at the start of this game. He'd been looking really good the last few weeks. He was also the centerpiece of this offense. While they've had Zach Wilson back at quarterback, they've been leaning on that run game. Michael Carter made a couple of nice plays, but he's not Breece Hall. And if they have to turn back to the quarterback and try and get this done through the air again, Zach Wilson didn't play well in this game. And Zach Wilson not playing well also hampers a bunch of their other best players. Like Garrett Wilson, 4 catches for 25 yards. Garrett Wilson looked unstoppable earlier in the season when Joe Flacco was just heaving it around the yard. I might have to take the L on Denzel Mims. The Elijah Moore, some tension there. He wants out. He's unhappy. He's basically been neutered the same way the rest of the offense has with Zach Wilson at quarterback. He just wants out. So he demanded to be traded. They got annoyed with the way he did it. They sat him down. He wasn't playing this game. Denzel Mims gets the opportunity to get some playing time and drop. God damn So the Denzel Mims thing doesn't look like it's going to work out.
Drop on 2 targets for Mims. Elijah Moore should be good, man. He should be able to help.
I think he would be, but
offense.
Again, like he just appears to have been more upset than other people at what has happened to this passing offense with Zach Wilson coming in versus Joe Flacco. Like Flacco wasn't necessarily playing particularly well, but he was productive just in terms of volume, right? And there are wide receivers that only really care about that. Like I don't care what happens generally to the rest of this offense, but I want 6 targets a game. I want to be able to make some plays. I want to feel like I'm helping. Whereas if you're out here, you're getting like 2 targets, even if you're winning. It's like I don't feel like I did anything.
Look, Zach Wilson has not looked good the last couple of weeks. I know the Jets have won, but Packers defense overall this year has been difficult to pass against. They were yesterday again, other than a couple plays that we highlighted for Taylor Heineke. And this Broncos defense has been outstanding this year. So Wilson, 2 poor grades the last couple of weeks. It kind of looks like last year, these last couple of weeks. But he showed signs of life against the Steelers and against the Dolphins early in the year. Let's see what happens when maybe the Jets don't play as good of a pass defense. That's not like a pass for Zach Wilson, but I think that's part of the story these last couple of weeks.
Also, like it's an average depth of target of 4.8 yards. Like at least Brett Rippon went down swinging, not necessarily well, but you know what I mean. Like I would prefer
just chucking it up to Sauce.
I'm not saying I would prefer to lose playing the way he played than to win playing the way Wilson played. But, like, if you're going to struggle, I would at least like to see the quarterback trying to make some plays while he's doing it. Like, Wilson just doesn't. And the sacks he's taken are the bad ones from a year ago. It's not good. Now, he's another guy
He had the one where he stumbled out and tried to toss the ball to the defense.
Yeah,
and
that
wasn't good.
Terrible. Like, again, another player dealing with some problems on the offensive line. I think Elijah Vera-Tucker went down and got hurt. That's going to cause another reshuffle, and every time they reshuffle, it only gets worse. So, like, the Jets were supposed to have a top 10 offensive line this season. It's been bottom 5 for most of the year.
Uneven play from the guys that are there, guys moving around.
Just got worse. So that isn't helping him. But, you would really like – I mean – I was thinking yesterday, like, how insane would it be if Davis Mills wound up being the best quarterback from one of the best quarterback drafts we've ever seen, which is not entirely unreasonable to say at this point. Like, who is an obviously better quarterback from that class than Davis Mills right now? The only one that's even in the conversation is Mac Jones.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones is being talked about as under pressure from Bailey Zappi. So, like, Davis Mills might end up being that guy.
That's all manufactured. Anyway, Jets defense was dominant.
Again.
Sauce Gardner's going to come away with another awesome grade. DJ Reed, so both corners. Another good game from Quinnen Williams up front.
If I was quibbling the just keep taking shots approach of Brett Rippon, I would say maybe stop throwing at Sauce deep down the field.
Man, 4 for 10 when targeting him for 16 yards. Three forced incompletions again by Sauce Gardner. Did you think he got away with some little jersey tugging at the catch point a couple times?
There was one play in particular where I think it was illegal contact / pass interference, particularly in this year where they were supposed to be emphasizing illegal contact.
Yeah.
They were like, the officials determined the contact was going both ways. I was like, well, it only went both ways because the receiver was trying to get the corner to stop mugging him.
I mean, look, I for one am glad that they're not overemphasizing illegal contact as much as I thought they would. That the game flow of it's 3rd and 22 and it's like, here's a little 5-yard penalty because he hit him at 6 yards. That drives me nuts.
No, I agree. I would generally prefer them to let them play in those scenarios, but there's always a line. So where Sauce reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman, which is a comp that you'll see, I think, reasonably often, is, again, Sherman had this thing earlier in his career. It was basically impossible to complete a deep ball on Richard Sherman.
I was going to say the same thing.
Because he's got the length, he's got the size, he's got the physicality, and even if you could run past him, which Sauce has an advantage over, like he's faster than Sherman is.
Yeah.
But even if you could run past him, he would never let you get that clean release. He would always maintain contact, so you never got a clean ability to do it. So the pass, if you were taking that shot, the pass needed to be perfect, or he was going to end up making a play on it. Sauce has the same thing, and yet Brett Rippon kept heaving it. But, like, I don't think you can look at those plays where both players are engaging in hand fighting, quote unquote, and say, well, it's 50-50. Yeah, but you have to look at how that started. Like, You can't say, well, the receiver's trying to give it back, so it's just let him play. Like, the only reason he's doing that is because he's been mugged for the last 10 yards by the corner, and he's trying to disengage. Like, this isn't an even thing here. This is one guy is committing a penalty, and the other guy is trying to stop it from happening. That should be a penalty on the DB.
I don't think it's one of those things like when you're like on an NFL sideline, you realize how fast and physical the game is.
Yeah.
I don't think TV even truly captures, like the NBA is similar. It doesn't capture the physicality. NBA player taking it to the hole, the physicality of playing through contact with strong dudes right around you, the physicality that a receiver needs just to win at the catch point against a cornerback. And I'm not just talking about contested catches. I'm talking about coming out of your break and all that stuff. Like you have, like yesterday, Chase Claypool gets like tapped in the leg, it looked like. Yeah. Maybe the legs got tangled up, but he falls over, right? Like you need some legitimate play strength. And what Sauce is bringing to the table here is as a receiver, you need to have some play strength because he is long, he's physical, and the Sherman comp that you mentioned, because we're going to throw Sherman comps everywhere. Tariq Woolen in Seattle, Sherman because he's in Seattle and he's huge. But Sauce is probably a better proxy for Richard Sherman for the ways that you outlined. And there was a point in Sherman's career where you just said, I'm legitimately not throwing it deep. I can't do this anymore. I can't throw go balls against Sherman. But you take your shiftier receivers and you try to get one-on-ones with him and make a move laterally. Like you have to do that with Sauce Gardner now. I think he's at the point where it is a do not throw deep on this guy type of situation.
The other area where I think it's a good comp to Sherman is that I think Sauce is going to play the game in a way where he dictates where the line of physicality is. He dictates where the penalties are. Because the Seahawks definitely did this during the Legion of Boom days where they said, you can't throw a flag on every play. Like if we decide we're going to show up today and we are going to get more physical than any other DBs in this league, you can't throw defensive pass interference or illegal contact every single play, if there is some, right? So you essentially change the line. Like in a normal game, this would be illegal contact every single play. But if you're going to do it every play, the officials can't go, I mean, this is a flag. So they basically move their own line and go, well, we're only going to throw the really egregious ones. I think that's a strategy that can work as a DB, and I think Sauce will play that way, where he's going to get more physical than the average corner and force the officials to adapt the way they're going to throw those flags. So I suspect if it was a different corner, that's the kind of play that would be pass interference. But because it's Sauce and he does that like most plays, it isn't. He can get away with it.
He now has 7 forced incompletions over the last 2 weeks, 11 on the year, just 7 weeks into the season. We were excited about that draft pick for the Jets, saying, hey, you take the corner over the edge defenders. They still ended up getting Jermaine Johnson later, but part of that reason is you just see the impact when you hit. Like Derek Stingley hasn't necessarily hit yet for the Texans. When you hit on that corner, the trickle-down effect to the rest of the defense is huge. And look, the Jets have improved. DJ Reed has been fantastic on the other side. They have improved greatly across the board. But Sauce Gardner at pick number 4 is an absolute home run because of what it does for the rest of that Jets defense.
They've gone from the worst cornerback group in the NFL to arguably, the second best duo in the league right now behind the Eagles pairing with 2 moves. Sauce Gardner at the top of the draft, DJ Reed in free agency, who was fantastic yesterday, had an absolute drill of a hit against Jerry Jeudy. The combination of Sauce Gardner and Patrick Surtain II gave up 28 yards yesterday, despite being targeted.
Good young corners, man. We've been fighting for who's the next Sherman, Revis, and Chris Harris. Really, like the guys that really dominated the last decade. We might have some nice young corners that are going to be
who's
in
the
that
comp
conversation.
for Surtain? So I think Sherman isn't a bad comp for Sauce Gardner. The way they play, physical, you can't throw deep on them. Who's the comp for Surtain?
Who's the most dependable,
technically sound, movement plus skills, and doesn't get beat on anything deep?
And probably won't be as flashy, right? Like he's not going to be as flashy as some of these other guys. Give it some time here.
Because it's not Revis who is the other sort of elite corner.
I honestly think Revis is in a different world as the rest of them.
But
even Sherman.
But you get to that kind of era, and you're like, well, Sherman, Revis, Patrick Peterson. It's not Peterson.
It's not
Revis. It's not Peterson.
Ben. Ben, you're watching.
He doesn't have time to come up with cornerback comps.
Oh, of course. If Ben finds time. Who is the best corner of that?
Well, it's not even the best. It's a very, like, Surtain plays the game in a very
peak
unusual
Stephon Gilmore
way.
the last couple of years?
No.
I don't know. Anyway, we'll figure that out. Maybe for the Wednesday show, we'll come up with a Patrick. Let us know in the chat your best Patrick Surtain comp while you hit the thumbs up button.
Maybe it's
so we go viral.
Maybe it's Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey.
Yeah.
There you go. Look at you. Same helmet scouting.
Same helmet scouting. Well, I'm thinking of Washington, Champ Bailey.
Oh, okay. That changes everything. Who's Clinton Portis? Trade him head up. Let's trade Josh Jacobs for Patrick Surtain straight up.
Well, Clinton Portis is Christian McCaffrey.
Well, there you go. Las Vegas 38. The Raiders moved to 2-4, 38-20 over the Houston Texans. Speaking of running backs going off, Josh Jacobs is just on a mission. 3 touchdowns, 143 yards, running hard. It felt like the Chiefs game a couple weeks ago, the Raiders may have found their offensive identity. Maybe the Broncos game the week before that. Run, play action coming off of that, create some chunk plays in the pass game. We're starting to see this really coming into the Raiders offense coming into their own, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of it has been Josh Jacobs, who's playing out of his mind right now.
He is running so hard, man.
He's always graded extremely well for us. Like, he forces missed tackles at a rate that maybe no other running back in the NFL can match. Dameon Pierce giving it a good shot, though, in his first year.
Jacobs just going more places with it.
Yeah, but he's always forced a ton of missed tackles. Like, he's always been extremely good at that. And unlike some running backs who can do that and don't really go forwards when they're breaking them, Josh Jacobs does. He's really impressive. Gets a ton of got a ton of yardage in this one as well. Had a bunch of first downs. Like, he is the thing driving this offense forward right now. And then, Derek Carr has been playing better. Hasn't been putting the ball in harm's way as much. Remember, he was leading the NFL in turnover-worthy plays over the first couple of weeks. He's cleaned that up.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, they're a power run team where Carr's going to take his shot plays. It wasn't so much shot plays yesterday, but there was just, yards after the catch, and there were big plays coming in the pass game on short stuff. But, yeah, I just like the way the Raiders are moving the ball right now, and Jacobs looks fantastic. They're 2-4, but more of a, dangerous 2-4. I'd say the Raiders. They're a tough team. Now, the Texans are the Texans. I don't think they're great. Davis Mills, again, played all right, throws an interception late, trying to make the comeback. But I think Vegas is just really finding their stride offensively.
Texans defense has been a little disappointing, particularly with the pass rush. They have a collection of players that none of them are great, but should be able to get pressure, and they're not at the moment. Like, even Jerry Hughes is not really getting
the kind of miss.
Yeah. And look, he's old as hell at this point. Like, Jerry Hughes should be slowing down, but it's not really happening at the moment. So Houston's defense, I think, should be better than we're seeing right now. But flipping back to the offensive side, like, Davis Mills, it feels a little bit like Jared Goff at the moment, where it's good right up until the point you want to praise him, and then he does something bad. Yeah. It's like, God, if you just didn't do that, I'd be right there with saying he's going to be good.
And then going to the rate, well, you're right, with Mills. I also think Mills in a comeback, so his average depth of target is just 5.3. I think he's settling into this conservative, take what's there type of quarterback. Yeah, he forced the one to Deron Harmon for the bad interception, but like you're making a comeback, right? You're gonna have some of those plays.
But again, it was Goffian, and like it was never there.
It was never there. I get it. I'm just saying Mills is he's got a decent enough arm. He's been pretty accurate throwing the ball down the field. He might be that next guy that I'm saying, hey, just take some more chances. Be a little bit more aggressive down the field. He's got touch. Like, Mills does a lot of things pretty well. But like you're saying, there are some of those poor decisions. Carr, by the way, had 13. So we early in the season, we talked about the Raiders' offensive line. Trouble in pass protection. We saw that early. 13 of his 28 dropbacks used play action. That's what I'm talking about, like with this groove. If Josh Jacobs keeps running the ball at 7 yards a pop, not that he will the whole time, but
sure,
creating big plays, play action game, relying on that'll help protect the offensive line. And I think that's a big part of the Raiders being more explosive offensively.
The pick six from Davis Mills to Deron Harmon, this has happened a few times in recent weeks. Offensive linemen never look less athletic than when they're trying to dive to make a tackle.
Yeah.
There's something about, the way, like when you try to dunk now, you just don't go up, You just keep going straight. Like when Schefter did the Lambeau leap, and he sort of ran, and went to jump, and he just didn't get off the ground. He just went forwards into the wall. That's what offensive linemen look like when they try and make this diving tackle. They're like, run. Then they're like, oh, I'm going to have to dive to make this. They don't go up. They just go. It's like something, like if a car or a train where it drives off a cliff, and it just goes, just a lovely little arc downwards. Just gravity doing its work. That's what you see.
You're working off old film.
Gravity just making an impact on 330 pounds of Laramie Tunsil. It's just you can't fight physics.
You're working off old film.
You
have not seen me.
You telling me you got more hops recently?
Maybe I'm more explosive than I was 2 years ago.
What do you think your vertical is right now?
I'd say weak to quite weak.
It's
not the 32 that I once owned.
No.
Let's see. I had a 30. I think I had a 32 when you got to learn how to set your scapula properly when they test your arm length.
Uh-huh.
And with that little cheat, I was a 32-inch vertical 10 years ago.
What's the worst vertical that's ever been recorded at the combine?
Was it Orlando Brown?
Could be.
He had like a 20, 22 or something like that.
Would you clear 2 feet in vertical?
Oh, no. I think no. Because I would start the off season at like when your body's hurting at like 26, 27 and then work my way up.
Oh.
To 30, 31.
Yeah. Well, then you're talking.
This is what I'm saying. Like
you got like a foot in you.
Athleticism isn't like it's a continuum. You know what I mean? Like you could be at different spots in your athleticism. Just like when you throw this weekend, we don't know where your which part of the continuum are you with velocity. Like one day you could be a 62 guy, the next day you could be 52.
Yeah.
Especially as a non-throwing non-athlete like you are right now.
Non-throwing non-athlete.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a continuum. It's not this thing. That's why like the combine, like he's a 4.3 guy. Is he?
I tweeted that I got myself a throwing coach, and by that I mean a ball with some pictures on it that shows you how to hold it.
Yeah, how's that going?
Well, so somebody tweeted, they're like, the whole point, you're cheating, essentially. The whole point of this was no practice. Like, I haven't practiced with this ball. Like, this is so that when we get there on Friday, I can use the picture to hold it in the correct way, because God knows you're not going to be coaching me, right? I have been out to throw on one single occasion to just get a ballpark of where we were.
Are the Reds going to supply us some nice Major League Baseballs?
No, I think you're going to have to bring your bucket of used
I'll bring the bucket.
Cast-offs.
All right. Look at me. I get to maybe I'll.
But yeah, just
I'll chuck it on the,
for the record. I'm not out there like every evening, grinding to try and improve the velocity. I've been out once just to find out where we are, and then the next time I throw will be on Friday.
You should put some practice time into it.
No, because I think the guy's right. The whole point was that I could go out there tomorrow and throw 60.
Okay,
I still think that's true.
We'll see on Friday. Seattle Seahawks 37, Los Angeles Chargers 23. The Seahawks take a commanding lead in the NFC West. They're now in first place at 4-3. Chargers fall to 4-3. And man, are the Seahawks officially a good team? Geno Smith bounced back. I thought Geno was a little off last week, but he continues his strong season. Threw some dimes in there in this game. Marquise Goodwin's the guy that finds the end zone twice. Couple nice. I mean, that's how you use that speed as a compliment to Tyler Lockett and to DK Metcalf. That was beautiful. And then, oh, by the way, Kenneth Walker is just going off right now. It's the year of the running back here, Sam. Walker goes for 168, helped by the 74-yarder that really sealed the deal for Seattle. But, man, Kenneth Walker just looks spectacular so far.
Yeah, he looked great. I feel so bad for J.C. Jackson. Like, we just got through last week, ripping on him for how badly he's been playing in the new sort of zone, or his new to him, zone scheme for the Chargers. They're having him play in cover 3. He's just not in the right place at the right time and getting run by consistently. This week, they completely changed, and J.C. Jackson was back playing press man coverage for the entire time and running with high-end Seahawks receivers in press man coverage, looking like J.C. Jackson again. Now, he still gave up a play for a touchdown, but that's because when he put his knee in the ground, it exploded, and he dislocated his kneecap and immediately had to be carted off the field, air casts on it, and all those kinds of things. So they're going to figure out today what the extent of that damage was, but they might have, that could have been a huge upgrade for them, just changing the usage pattern of J.C. Jackson and putting him back in the position where he was so good for New England for so many years. And the fact that they were making that adjustment I think is a hugely encouraging thing.
For sure.
And then,
because you don't always see that, right? We always talk about scheme fits, and Chargers like to do this and that. They were trying to adjust.
Yeah, and look, so, people would sort of say, well, why didn't they do that in the first place? I think there's reason to think that J.C. Jackson should have been good in a zone-heavy scheme. There's also no reason why he couldn't have been. This might have just been a rocky start. Like, remember when Stephon Gilmore went to New England, and all of a sudden there was coverage bust like every week, and he seemed to be at the heart of it.
The 2017 Patriots, the first 6 weeks of the season, had one of the worst defenses in the league, and a lot of it was the coverage bust, and Stephon Gilmore looked like a bust of a free agent signing through the first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the year.
And then Gilmore got himself on the right track, and all of a sudden he was the linchpin behind everything they were doing in that defense. Now, I'm not saying we don't know whether that would have happened or not with J.C. Jackson, and evidently the Chargers at least believed that there was reason enough to think it wouldn't, that they should pivot back and start lining him up in press man coverage again. But, God, we just so many injuries, and him going down in that way just sucks. Like, the idea that I'm constantly kind of bummed out that the idea that the human body sometimes you just go, no, there's nothing. There was nothing in that when you're looking at it. Like, he's running downfield with the guy, just plants his knee, and the knee just went, no, not today. I'm out.
Because everything's just fast. I mean, it's the same way a thrower can blow out. It's just everything's happening fast, and you're asking your body to be physical and quick and at a high speed and changing direction, and it's just,
And then another play, DK Metcalf goes up to try and make a catch, comes down and lands awkwardly and gets carted off with a knee that doesn't sound as bad. But
it seems like he's in good spirits.
Yeah, but God, just in those kinds of injuries suck.
They do. They absolutely do. This was the Ryan Neal game, by the way.
The Ryan Neal game.
Yeah. Seahawks safety Ryan Neal. So if you guys remember it all, last year, if you look at Ryan Neal, you go to Premium Stats 2.0. If you have that part of your PFF Plus package, check out Ryan Neal's career grades. It's like a whole bunch of grades in the 50s and 60s. Last year, he had an awesome game against the Niners, was matching up against George Kittle. He's got a couple of these games in the 80s and 90s. This was one of them. Has the early interception of Justin Herbert, a couple other forced incompletions there. Every now and again, Ryan Neal, a 2018 undrafted free agent out of Southern Illinois. Every now and again, he just has these incredible games, and this was one of them.
Another 2 pass breakups from Tariq Woolen. Yeah. One of them was another one of those ones where it's like, got away with a little bit of contact late in the play. He was chasing that one kind of the whole way, but the first one was a really nice play, driving on a dig route.
Yeah, again, those are tough, right? Because if you do get away with it, it's almost like somewhat assuming that you know that you can get away with it, right? Like there's a chance you're playing the back judge, who's watching you, how they call things, where their blind spots are. That is part of cornerback play.
A lot of
other times you just get lucky and
a lot of it is determining what position do you have at the time. Like the difference, so Sauce's play where he's getting physical with Cortland Sutton, I think, and they're running, and it was like, oh, this is just hand fighting the whole way. Like, okay, I would say that the hand fighting was initiated by Sauce and was probably over the line. On the other hand, he was never out of phase in the play, largely because of that, but he never let himself get to a position where he was chasing or in trouble or struggling to get back in phase and blah, blah. So I think you can give a guy more leeway when he's in that position, because you're like, well, this is just, he's in position, he's not cheating to try and get back. It's definitely a fair counter to say, yeah, but the only reason he's in position is because of this contact in the first place. But I think there's a difference between that and the Tariq Woolen play here, where he is out of phase and he's chasing to get back in phase, and the receiver is the guy making the adjustment at the end because he's looking at where the ball is, and Tariq Woolen is just trying to catch up a yard, and that's where the contact comes from. Like, there's a default presumption on the first one that he's okay, and the second one, like, the contact is actually you're trying to rescue yourself from a bad position.
How concerned? So the Chargers are 4-3, and I know every team in the league besides 3 feels like, hey, they're not that good. No matter whether they're 6-1 or 3-4, nobody feels good, right? The Chargers are one of those don't feel good 4-3 teams, and I think a lot of their previous issues pop up again. It's this, Herbert's averaging under 6 yards per attempt again. Not enough explosive plays from the offense. But then the defense, man, right? The same thing from this last offseason. What's their run defense going to be like? Can they rush the passer better? Not a great game from Khalil Mack, from Sebastian Joseph Day to this point was one of those offseason signings that was supposed to help on the defensive interior. He's been disappointing this entire season. At what point is it, once again, a season where the Chargers are just getting beat up in the trenches up front, and their stars, whether it's J.C. Jackson or Khalil Mack, their big free agent signings, or trades, not necessarily doing enough here?
That's part of it. Another part of it is the injuries they've had have been almost exclusively to really key players at critical positions,
True.
Which is always a problem. This is a weirdly bad game from Justin Herbert. His interception was really bad. Like, he trusted his arm too much and tried to fire it between two linebackers across the middle of the field. Receiver running the in behind, and you try and hit the window between the linebackers. And the window just wasn't there. I mean,
he didn't know it was the Ryan Neal game?
No, obviously. But it was just too tight a window. It was never going to be there. That gap was always going to close. And even with Justin Herbert's arm, you weren't going to get it in there. Those are the plays that he doesn't make. Like, remember, we were talking about he leads the league in turnover-worthy play rate. Like, he just doesn't put the ball in harm's way. These are plays like this are why that's true. He doesn't make those throws, and he did.
Had another interception late in the game on 4th and 3 when the game was pretty much over, 37-16 at the time for Seattle. Darrell Taylor had a really nice Darrell Taylor, big strip sack in there. What's that?
Trifecta.
Yeah, strip sack and recovery. Beautiful play there for Taylor and the Seahawks, man. So are the Seahawks good now? Because it was easy to dismiss them earlier in the year because their defense was just really bad, and it didn't look like they had any playmakers who could play. Now all of a sudden, with Tariq Woolen emerging, Ryan Neal shows up every 8 games, and Darrell Taylor playing better. Are they actually a good enough defense to complement the fact that they've got one of the better quarterbacks in the league this year, Geno Smith, Kenneth Walker breaking out? Like, Seattle might actually be good now.
Yeah, Herbert's other interception got negated, so they got was taken off, and they actually got 4th.
Oh, is that what it was, the 4th down?
Yeah, 4th and 1 on the next play.
Oh, that's right. He only had the one. My bad.
But it was bad.
The no-play filter.
What was the question? Are the Seahawks good?
Yeah, because if the defense was poor as of a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But they're showing signs of life lately in the offense with Kenneth Walker and Geno Smith and the playmakers. Like, they're not bad. The rookie tackles are playing pretty well, especially in pass protection.
This was a good game by the defense. I still don't know that the defense is good. Now, they're better than we thought they were at the start of the season because guys like Tariq Woolen are real.
Yeah.
We've reached the point in the season now where I'd be surprised if this was just a sample size fluke and Tariq Woolen goes back to being the guy we saw in college who was getting torched as often as he was making plays. I'm not sure that's going to happen. So all of a sudden, you've got a guy that wasn't really in the conversation or in the evaluation earlier when you were saying, oh, this is just not talented defense. So it's probably a better unit than we thought, but it's still not great. And I think this was just a good game from them. But the point being, the offense is good enough for them to be in contention. Like, in this division where the Rams have their own problems, the 49ers have dropped games where we thought they were a better team than they were. The Cardinals just don't look good. This is a division where Seattle can be in the conversation for the playoffs with the offense because Geno Smith, I don't think, is going anywhere. And that duo receiver of Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, like, there's enough on offense for them to fit the same template that they've had for years, which is the offense carrying the defense and actually dragging themselves to the playoffs.
Speaking of the 49ers, they lose to the Chiefs. Chiefs 44. 49ers 23. Chiefs move to 5-2. Niners fall to 3-4. The Chiefs just pulled away late, man. It was a close game for a little while. It was back and forth. From a Niners perspective, they had a lot go right early on. Early Patrick Mahomes interception. Niners get up 10-0. But then San Francisco starts settling for long field goals, and that never feels like a good recipe against Kansas City. And then the Chiefs, man, so explosive offensively in this one. They start creating those big plays. Juju Smith-Schuster, Marcos Valdez-Scantling, Travis Kelce does his thing. Just a lot of huge, big plays by the Chiefs. The 49ers defense not looking like anything they showed earlier in the season.
Did you see the stat, NFL research? Highest quarterback win percentage, including the playoffs since 2019. Number one, Patrick Mahomes. 790. So 80% of his games, essentially, he wins. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers, 730. Number 3, Patrick Mahomes in games where his team is trailed by 10 points, 706.
Really?
And number 4, Tom Brady, 698. Wow. So the only quarterback with a better win rate than Patrick Mahomes since 2019 when he's trailed by 10 points in a game is Aaron Rodgers.
10-0. And it was like nothing.
It isn't. I mean, honestly, I've made this point before that I think the Chiefs' offense is almost happier when they're put in a 10-point deficit and they can just go, all right, let's just do this.
Yeah.
We don't have to pretend that we should run the ball or, do these things that we do just to keep the balance or the game script. We can just go out here and ball.
Mitchell Schwartz had a really good tweet here because James Palmer reports Nick Bosa said the Chiefs had a good game plan and it threw him off personally. He said they threw a lot of stuff at him and he has to be ready for that. Mitchell Schwartz, his response was he was a wrecking ball early in the game, but then you get chipped, doubled, cut. Jet sweeps go by you for touchdowns. You got to run away from, run at. You get you have a tight end or wide receiver next to you to make you uncomfortable. It takes a toll mentally. I feel like you could, if you're watching the game closely, you can kind of feel that, right? There were touchdowns that went right by Bosa. You could see him every now and again. As soon as you start teeing off, the tackle just plays soft, right? Every night when you watch it and it's a screen, right? The tackle just kind of like lets you bull rush him into the quarterback, and before you know it, the screen's behind you. That was one of the biggest plays of the game. I think the Chiefs were backed up on 3rd and 20 or so. Probably going to have to settle for a long field goal, but a little screen to Jerick McKinnon goes for 30 yards, puts him on the goal line. I think the next play was a touchdown, Justin Watson. Little plays like that where, look, Mahomes is awesome. He's fantastic. He got away with a bad red zone decision as well that was not intercepted. But the offense as a whole was absolutely cooking, whether it's a screenplay here and there. Like the last touchdown to Juju Smith-Schuster, there was like the Niners looked like they were playing with 9 guys on the field. There were open receivers left and right. Mahomes was hitting them. And they did stuff like what we're saying to Nick Bosa to take the one guy that can wreck the game up front, take him out by just attacking him different ways.
Yeah, no, they did a great job of combating Bosa. Like, Travis Kelce is so good. Both tight ends, actually, in this game. Travis Kelce, it was National Tight End Day or whatever it was, and both tight ends ended up with almost identical stat lines. It was 6 for 98 yards, and then Kittle had a touchdown. Kelce didn't. Kelce had a touchdown that was negated. Kittle also had a play in there that was negated. But anyway, both these guys, you're watching them, they are so good. Kelce is just so big, fast, and strong. Like when he got into the end zone that time, it was just a pass that was fired in there, and he just hands catches it and then just stands there strong through a hit and just shrugs it off. You know what I mean? Like, these are plays like that are why you look at players like that, the sort of elite tight ends, and realize what a problem they are, because you can't just put a DB on him because he does that. He's so strong that he can just ride through that contact and there's nothing you can do about it. And then when you match him up with a linebacker or somebody that's bigger and heavier, they just make them look ridiculous in the open field or when they're running routes and those kinds of things. Same thing with George Kittle. This was just a great game of realizing or sort of remembering how freaking good those two guys are.
Other key plays to remember here. By the way, I just want to touch on the sequence before the half because it was just some really ugly football. And it's back to, I know the Chiefs are coming off a loss, but you mentioned it at the end against the Bills. They look like the two best teams.
Yeah.
Right? The margin for error is tight in both of those games. But to beat the Chiefs, you really need a lot of things to go right. At the end of the second quarter, the Niners line up for one of those long field goals, and it's like you probably should start going for 4th and longs, 4th and 5s and 6s and stuff against the Chiefs, because even if you hit the field goal, it doesn't necessarily matter a ton. But the Niners have a false start. Chiefs do a really nice job, little line stunt. False start, they move back. Then they have to punt. Gets muffed by Sky Moore, your boy.
Probably shouldn't be returning punts anymore.
Probably not. He muffs it. So the Niners are gifted at like the 12-yard line, whatever it was, right? Yeah. They're gifted this possession. At the very least, they're going to get their 3 points back. Uh-huh. Instead, Jimmy G throws an interception, just kind of chucks it up.
Ridiculous interception.
Yes. PFF's Kev Cole asks, he's like a Jimmy G defender because Kev loves EPA as a stat, and Jimmy G's EPA is always pretty strong. And Kev was posing the question, like, why is the Jimmy G discourse always so one-sided? It's because we're all watching the game, Kev.
Because of those plays.
Because we're watching the game and we see the high EPA plays are wide open space plays, much like Tua last night. Like, Tua looked like he was thrown into an ocean for much of the game. But anytime the windows got tighter, I'm not saying Jimmy G makes a lot of good throws too. I mean, he's not horrible. I'm saying there's a lot of free plays, nice plays that are schemed up in this system. And then there's a lot of those disastrous decisions like what Jimmy G had there. So that's a huge sequence. The other one, the Niners keep coming back. And Garoppolo did make some big plays in this game, some nice throws or whatever. But it's 28-23, 3rd and 11. Marquez Valdes-Scantling just straight torches. Was that Travarius?
Yep.
Right by Travarius for a 57-yarder. Mahomes was outstanding in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs' offense was unstoppable in the fourth quarter. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this fine line, like, you finally get the Chiefs to 3rd and long. This has been the Mahomes era, right, for the Chiefs. You finally get Mahomes into 3rd and long, and he just hits the go ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling for 57, and Chiefs just ran away with it in the fourth quarter.
They really did. They're just better. I mean, the Chiefs are a legit Super Bowl contender. They look really good, and the 49ers have had in the last couple of weeks games where you'd have to question what they bring. The Christian McCaffrey dynamic was also pretty interesting.
Came in, yeah.
They bring him in. They trade for him on Thursday. He gets the playbook on the plane on the way over there. And so, leading into this game, it's like, well, is he going to play? If he's going to play, what's it going to look like? They deployed him basically as the lead back, like not just here's a red zone package or like here's 3 plays that are all the same. They just sent him out there, and you're like, you're the main back in the offense. You're going to play.
Run outside zone.
So I think it was a Greg Olson in the booth.
Yeah, Olson is fantastic.
He really is.
Olson should be the top guy. I mean, no offense to Tom Brady, but Greg Olson should be the top guy for Fox. I think.
Going forward. Whether or not he's
designated
that way, he is that guy.
He is right now. I'm just saying it sounds like they're keeping the seat warm.
No, I know, Brady, but he's the best guy they have is what I'm saying.
Olson's fantastic.
He was saying that effectively they're basically just telling him to play in the huddle, They call the play, and then somebody was saying, McCaffrey, here's what it is, here's what you do, Which
that was one of those he was kind of guessing and joking, because the first pass they threw to McCaffrey was a screen.
But also for a running back,
Garoppolo actually did say that.
For a running back, it makes a ton of sense. It's not rocket science. When somebody's telling you, okay, this is inside zone right, your job is relatively simple at that point. It's just, okay, you understand vaguely what the play is, figure it out. You're not. It doesn't have the nuance that other positions have in terms of the exact area of responsibility. The area that it causes problems is, blitz pickup or stuff that is more complicated, that requires more in-depth knowledge of the adjustments and the breakdowns. But in terms of the actual plays being run, it's pretty simple to take a guy who doesn't have any idea what he's doing and say, okay, the blah, blah, call the play, and then some guy lean over to him and say, this is what it is, run this.
Yeah, as far as like routes go, you just run screens, keep it simple as much as possible. So McCaffrey ends up carrying the ball 8 times for 38 yards, a couple catches for 24 yards. Certainly not enough.
By the way, the other element of before the half, the Chiefs, they kick a field goal and miss on 3rd and 20.
Yeah, so that was what they got backed up, but they had no timeouts left. That was kind of Andy Reid saying, there was at least one time I think in Mahomes' career where
there was 11 seconds on the clock. Remember, they got into field goal position with 13 seconds on the clock.
Yeah, but what are you going to do? You just
get an easier field goal attempt.
Maybe. I think there was at least one time in Mahomes' career, I can't remember offhand, if maybe they messed up the clock late and didn't get a field goal off.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know if I can't remember if that was true or not, but I don't know if that's stuck in their head. But what you can do is say, all right, we're going to hit a 5-yard out. You have to get out of bounds. You can't do anything in bounds. You're not going to take chances in the end zone, right, at that point.
There's 11 seconds left on the clock. Twice in recent memory, in 13 and 12 seconds, they have gone a significant distance to get into field goal range. You're telling me they couldn't have picked up X more yards to give Butker a slightly easier kick?
No, they could have.
Now look, it's 39 yards. It's not like it was it's not like they were doing this and saying, no, we're good with a 55-yard shot.
They were worried about not coming away with points.
But 11 seconds,
I know.
11 seconds with Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback, that should not be a gimme. Should not be bail on this and let's just kick it.
What you should do is line up, see how the defense lines up. And if they're giving you the 5-yard out, 8-yard out, something that you can get out of bounds quickly, you take it. If they're not, you snap it, you just throw it away.
Sure.
And then they didn't do it. They missed the field goal.
They just didn't. Yeah,
they still scored 44 points.
Andy Reid is a great coach, one of the best coaches in the NFL. His flaw, though, is these critical time management situations late in the half or late in the games, which, I mean, these are the fine margins, right? If you're playing Buffalo again, it's coming down to one of these, maybe instead of the 13 seconds going your way, it breaks against you because he does something like that.
By the way, this was the Mecole Hardman game, too. Catches a tap pass for a touchdown. And
three touchdowns.
2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
The end around. This was the Chiefs' offense, though, right? You got Hardman working horizontally with his speed, Juju working the middle of the field with Kelsey, Valdez-Scantling as the deep threat. This was everything working, man. Jerick McKinnon on screens. This was taking all those various skill sets, which, look, we talk a lot about Tyreek Hill and the impact that he has, and he absolutely does. But this was one of those games where they did kind of replace Tyreek Hill in the aggregate. They took all of these various skill sets, used them properly, used them all over the field, and they all came together and put together a huge game offensively for the Chiefs. So there we go, 44-23. Chiefs over the Niners. Last game, Dolphins 16, Pittsburgh Steelers 10. Dolphins move to 4-3. Steelers fall to 2-5 on Sunday Night Football. Kenny Pickett with 2 game-sealing interceptions in the fourth quarter for the Steelers.
Yeah, the Kenny Pickett narrative is going to get quite strange because he's generally played reasonably well, but he does keep throwing the ball to defenders.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunate. Great play, by the way, at the end. Was it Igbenogany who made the pick and got his feet
along
down?
The sideline. It was a poor decision, but Igbenogany does a great job keeping his feet in along the sideline there. All told, though, it's still just not a very explosive Steelers offense. Najee Harris is averaging 3.8 per carry in this game. When they throw to George Pickens, good things tend to happen, but even then there were some short passes in there. Great touchdown, beautiful. I mean, he just looks so smooth on anything back shoulder. But it's just a whole bunch of, 6-8 yard gains over and over again for the Steelers offense.
Yeah, I mean, at the catch point.
In the pass game.
At the catch point, George Pickens is insane.
Yeah.
Like, his body control is phenomenal. His understanding of the sideline and how to get his feet down, it's all pretty incredible. Like, getting his second foot down on that catch was crazy last night. Not just because it wasn't a case of this just fall and it'll drag down. Like, we watch him contort in the air. He sort of slams his right foot down. Like, there was a conscious effort to fire that foot towards the ground to try and get that second toe to hit, which he needed to do because otherwise his hand was going to come down before it did. There aren't many receivers in the NFL that can make that play.
So every, I guess really good players get this a lot. Like, they make these plays and then everybody starts throwing comparisons out there. Like, in a matter of minutes, I saw Mike Williams of the Chargers. I saw A.J. Green. Of course, I've used Brandon Lloyd. He's probably a souped-up version of Brandon Lloyd. But that's how good Pickens can be, right? Like, you've got this range of really good receivers where people just see the body control, how he wins, the physicality, and just a lot that he brings to the table. So the other story of the game is Chris highlighted it on the show. 4 dropped interceptions by the Steelers. 3, one was more of just like went off Dolphins' hands, but like the other 3, Tua throws the ball directly to the defense. And this remains an issue in my Jimmy G comp. Man, my Jimmy G comp for Tua. I'm not great with all my comps and everything, but this is Jimmy G, right? This just felt like a Garoppolo game in the same system, right? He's throwing into this ocean of space to Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who are fast and look fast, and the offense, they were humming right off the bat, right? That first drive, quick, and everybody's open. But once the windows tighten up a little bit, and there were some bad decisions. Tua, dating back to last year, with the lead in the fourth quarter, continues to throw the ball to the defense. It did not come back to bite in this one, other than the fact that they didn't score.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't lose the ball, but they didn't score. And with all this explosiveness on the offense, they still only scored 16 points. You can't take away the second half against the Ravens where they scored 1 million. But if you do, they're not scoring a ton of points in Miami, even though it looks really cool.
It does. And you look, some of the decisions are bad. The accuracy wasn't good either on some of those deep shots. The one that he forced was a Tyreek Hill late in the game where he forced that down the left sideline. It was into double coverage and ended up, I think, like bouncing off Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah.
Like that was legit double coverage.
Yep.
They had a cornerback in trail. They had the safety running over the top. And the worst thing about it is if you look at the other side of the field, Jalen Waddle ends up making that corner fall over. And at the point where Tua is releasing the ball, he's doing the Randy Moss when his corner is literally face first in the ground like this, like as he's making that play. Okay, look, it doesn't work like that, right, if you're reading one side of the field. But whatever. But you look at that motion, and it's putting him in a position with a ton of guys. It's not single coverage. He's not going to be one-on-one the whole way, whereas Waddle on the other side was. I think that's a bad decision, and it was inaccurate.
And so that's in the fourth quarter with a one-score lead, right? We saw Tua do this, I think it was last week of the season, last year against the Patriots. He throws a fourth-quarter interception with the lead. He did the same thing in week 1 this year against New England, but it got dropped. These turnover-worthy plays from Tua have become a bit of an issue. All that said, early on, he did look sharp. You could see the quick release and what he brings to the table as far as getting rid of the ball and sack avoidance and all that stuff. And then on the other hand, you have him lowering his shoulder to try to pick up an extra couple of yards a couple times, man. It's like, I don't – like Josh Allen takes a lot of hits. And I'm not a pure believer in just because you're 6'5", 240, you're more durable than the guy that's 6 foot, 200 or whatever. Over time, I think Josh Allen, just like Cam Newton, could get banged up, right? Like if you keep taking those hits. At the same time, it is easier to take those hits if you're 6'5", 240. My whole point with quarterbacks staying healthy is it's a style thing. Quarterbacks stay healthy when you get rid of the ball, you avoid big hits, you throw the ball away when you need to, you slide when you need to, and Tua is not making those decisions still.
Yeah, and they interviewed him after the game, and he was like, we're going to have to go away and look at probably not making those plays again. So he at least, I think, understands that he shouldn't be doing that, but it's a sort of muddy data point, right? Because you look and the data actually says the bigger quarterbacks are more prone to get injured than smaller quarterbacks because it's a play style thing. It's not a contact thing. It's like the alternative is don't take those hits. Like, the big quarterbacks tend to take those hits because they play in a style that they can play because they're much bigger. But if you compare it to a guy that knows he's small and doesn't take a hit, he's going to be better. So, but where it flips is if you're going to have contact, it's much better to be the hammer than the nail, which is the issue here. Yeah. Like Tua could be a much more.
That's a good point.
Tua could be a much more or a much less injury-prone quarterback relative to Josh Allen if Tua understood that he weighed half as much as Josh Allen and undertook a mission to never take a hit for the rest of his career.
Well, this is part.
But if he's going to play like Josh Allen, he will get hurt more than Josh Allen because he's outweighed by like 50 pounds.
Tua tried to be the hammer on these plays. He tried.
Yeah.
He's just a 200-pound hammer instead of a 240-pound hammer.
And that's not a good idea.
Yeah. On the other side, so I think if you're a Steelers fan, you're like, man, missed opportunities. Also, if you're a Steelers fan, you're probably confused by Kenny Pickett. Another one of those games where like a quarterback completed a high percentage of passes, right? But when they were incomplete, they were to the other team. 2 of them really on Pickett. They were his fault. And they were in crunch time. They were on game-winning drive opportunities. Javon Holland jumps the first one. Holland continues to shine brightly in that secondary for the Dolphins. And then the ill-advised pass to Igbenogany in the end zone. The Kenny Pickett experience, I've seen that described a couple times. I think Ben Solak was describing it as a guy that plays like he's got high-end traits, like a Josh Allen, tries to make those types of plays, but doesn't have high-end traits. And then everybody's like, hey, multiple people are like, hey, that's Taylor Heineke. And that's not necessarily what you want to hear if you're a Steelers fan right now.
No, I mean, I don't think his traits are okay. They're not elite. They're not like Josh Allen traits, but I don't think they're bad either. Like he's just putting the ball in. I mean, he's playing like a rookie. Like, that's ultimately what we're talking about here. A guy who is actually doing a pretty good job overall, but is putting the ball in harm's way too often and in ill-advised situations and bad times. And like, the difference between those guys and Jared Goff is that Goff is still doing it, this number of years into his career. It makes sense for a rookie to be doing it. But as long as he is, like, those are problematic plays.
They're not rookie mistakes if everybody makes them. I don't know.
Well, they are. It's just that some guys never get out of making rookie mistakes.
Then it's not a rookie mistake. It's just a mistake.
Well, it's a rookie mistake because rookies make them more often. Like, it's just a bad play. But rookies are more prone to those mistakes than seasoned NFL players. But oftentimes, the reason seasoned NFL players are simply not good is because they're still making rookie mistakes.
The Steelers' offense as a whole still remains difficult to understand because I do think Kenny Pickett's given him a little bit of a spark. I've said before, I don't think Trubisky was poor at throwing the ball. I just don't think his throws brought a lot of value to the team, right? Pickett feels like he's moving the ball a little bit more, pick one up with his legs here and there, but still not putting points on the board in Pittsburgh. Now, you have 2 red zone interceptions. That's part of it, or two late, 2 interceptions as you're driving. That'll hurt too, but I don't know what to do with the Steelers, man, offensively. And then the Dolphins, they do look like a different team with Tua, again, even though they scored 16 points.
They're a different team. And look, Tua made a bunch of bad decisions in this game that tossed the ball to Steelers defenders multiple times. If he doesn't do that, and it's a big if, but if he doesn't do that, this is a dramatically more productive offense than it would be with Skylar Thompson or with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. Like, Tua does make a difference to this team, but he can't have those turnover-worthy plays if they're going to have the kind of success that they want to have. Like, that is a big difference.
Teron Armstead comes back at left tackle, doesn't give up a pressure, much better than what we saw the last couple of weeks between Brandon Shell and Greg Little, right? Was it Little at left tackle 2 weeks ago? Last week. So that helped too. But again, Tua is lightning quick with his release. He will help protect the offensive line as much as possible.
Which is another element that he has in his favor.
So there you go. Dolphins move to 4-3. Everybody in the AFC East is 3-3 or better. Patriots are going to play tonight against the Bears. And that's it. My picks were much better this week, huh?
Yeah, 7 wins.
Going full Costanza.
7 wins with a game to go. Who have you picked in the game?
I would have taken New England, so definitely took Chicago.
So you did indeed take Chicago.
Yeah.
They got 8 points to play with. So
maybe if I do with a hybrid of, no, you got to go full. If Costanza works for me this week, got to do it again next week.
Well, what did you get? So you didn't have a good. You got Thursday night wrong. Cardinals rolled. You didn't see the Chiefs covering, or you did. So
I did.
Yeah.
Right.
You got the Chargers-Seahawks game wrong. You got the Jacksonville-Giants game wrong. Neither of us got Detroit. And then you got Houston wrong. So those are where you failed. I don't know what your learnings are from that, but,
Maybe I'll make some adjustments. Maybe there's a hybrid, and I'll go like 13-0 in a couple weeks here. Anyway, always a great Monday morning, an efficient Monday morning for us.
Efficient.
Yeah. Thank you to the bye weeks. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. As always, tell your friends. This is the podcast to listen to the day after, PFF NFL podcast. And we'll be back on Wednesday. Send your emails if you have any hot topics you want us to discuss. We'll be back here on Wednesday for our midweek show, previewing Thursday Night Football. And that's it. Got anything else?
No.
All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you Wednesday.